In three, two, one. It's probably live again. Hello. Welcome to Ranked Resident Evil on the Stick 31 Nights of Horror 11. I'm Eric Allen. I'm here with Joe Drilling.
I am the one and only Joe Drilling, looking for my cat who just jumped off my couch. It's very spooky here. I have a cat here. That's spooky,
That's
right?
pretty
That's always
scary. Yeah.
spooky.
So this
And I
is
have a candle, and I have a Resident Evil poster
right.
in the background there.
We've been streaming horror games all through October.
Mhm.
There's a playlist with all that if you want to check that out. But tonight we're gonna do something special because it's Halloween. We're gonna rank all of the Resident Evil games. There's a few we're gonna miss because we haven't played them enough to really throw them into the hopper and do them justice. But it's a
So
surprising.
you're not just doing mainline.
No, we're doing spin-offs as many as we can
Okay.
get
As
through.
many as you can
Yeah.
got covered. Okay.
So I called this Ranked Resident Evil, although I told Joe earlier I thought about calling it Ranking It with Eric and Joe. Wink. Get it? Anyway.
No, you totally blew it.
What?
You should have included Roger and have it be Rankin Roger.
Oh boy.
That's he'll do a full stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's Eric, there's Joe. We're here. We're going to talk about Resident Evil. We're going to start
Evil.
We're going to start at the beginning. So the idea is basically we're going to go through the list of Resident Evil games roughly chronologically. I captured footage of a bunch of them, and we're going to start at the beginning in 1996 with the original Resident Evil. We're not going to do all the different versions of the game. We'll probably mention our favorite version. So, there's like one particular one that we think you should play. We'll say that, but we're just going to kind of toss all the various re-releases and remakes and HD remasters all into the same bucket.
Same bucket.
Because the games are
so potentially one of
broadly
those
similar.
could drive it up because it was better or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
we're
That is
ranking
definitely the case
our
with Resident
favorite.
Evil 1.
Right.
Resident Evil 1, are we getting right into it? Are we doing it?
Yeah,
Resident
let's
Evil
get
1?
into it.
Resident Evil 1, I just did a video about it. It just went live today. But Resident Evil 1, the original release on both PlayStation and Saturn, is actually a pretty tough nut to crack, mostly because the auto-aim has been removed. Enemies have more health. You have less health. Or enemies do more damage, I guess, however you want to phrase that. And it's just, it's a real son of a bitch because the American rental market was a problem for Japanese game developers between, whatever.
Or at least they thought it was.
1990. And so they ruined a bunch of games like Castlevania 3, Ninja Gaiden 3, Resident Evil. They ruined them because they were like, well, if people beat it in a rental, like, well, they won't buy it. And so we can't let that happen. So...
and so instead, people just rented it over and over and over again until they did beat it.
Also, we're just going to make this game worse. We'll talk about that more later with some of these other games because I had some problems playing some of the other ones for similar reasons, and the PC game piracy market, we'll say. But so the original Resident Evil, it has a bunch of different releases. We've talked about this a bunch before, but they're like the original director's cut, not the Halloween 3. Spooky.
I love this shirt. I have this
good shirt.
Yeah, it's a joke on the children.
So we like the director's cut. The DualShock version is infamously fucked up music, which is incredible. It's incredible. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you really owe it to yourself to at least listen to the soundtrack or play through the game. It's really something.
Someone recently did a cover of the Basement music on like trombone, and it's just it is absolutely yes. Here, I'm just gonna share it to the
Discord.
To Discord because it is just absolutely whether you want to put it up on stream or not is up to you.
Maybe if there's time at the end, I'll figure out if we can do that. We'll use that to take us out. Yeah. But anyway, so really the original Resident Evil is it's basically the OG of survival horror games. I mean, it was like literally sort of based on the NES game Sweet Home and also inspired by the Alone in the Dark games to a certain extent. But Alone in the Dark pretty hard to play, and Sweet Home is like an
Oh,
overhead perspective.
Sweet Home is like Dragon Quest but horror themed,
Right.
basically.
Right. It's like an adventure game. And so Resident Evil tries to mix third person action with adventure. And I think it does it pretty successfully. I think that the real standouts of the game for me, I mean, obviously the dialogue, love the cheesy ass B FMV that opens the thing with the rubber puppet dog and all that stuff.
Snake, a
The
monster.
incredibly horrible costumes that they're wearing. Just like
Yes.
somebody went to Joanne Fabrics and somebody's mom sewed those on a weekend or something.
Like
Um,
everybody's wearing like hammer
right.
pants. Like
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they are. Yeah. The other thing
like
that would have made
Jill
the
is that
game
Jill's
better
actress.
is if Wesker had like Zubaz pants or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you love Jill's. You were almost a Jill sandwich if you were the master of
Right.
unlock.
Master of
Take this with
Unlocking.
you. I hope this isn't Chris's blood, and he's like
Yes.
licking the blood off his fingers or whatever. It's ridiculous.
Barry's dialogue is just
Yeah,
so good.
but it's
Like
fun. It's really fun. It's
there's
bad in a
one
fun
line
way.
there's a line in the Saturn version. It's in the I put it in the video that I just made, but the Saturn version has a line, at least one line from Barry that's totally it's the same line, but it's a different reading. And
Hmm.
so one of them is like way overdone. It's when he saves you from Plant 42, he's like, "This house, what the hell is this place?" And then like it's like a Tommy Wiseau reading in the other one. He's like, "This house, what the hell is this place?" And I'm like, why did they change that for the Saturn port? Like, why did you do that? That's terrible.
Like, we got to dial it back a little.
The other one
Yeah,
was too
right.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, right,
But yeah,
right.
so I mean, all the things that those things aren't bad. I consider those to be positives for this game. I think it also has really incredible level design, especially like the first third where you're in the mansion, you're crisscrossing back and forth, where you're finding keys to open the doors, and then you're like figuring out like, oh, now I can go here and see this, and then you open up like a door that was inaccessible from before. Now you have a shortcut to get back to the save room or whatever. Like figuring out that map and opening all that, like cracking that nut, like layer by
Yeah.
layer is really, really satisfying.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and also people say like people have said, like, oh, like Batman Arkham Asylum is like they finally made a 3D Metroidvania, and it's like, yo, dog, Resident Evil was 3D
right.
Metroidvania in 1996. Like
Yeah.
the whole map is
It doesn't have
until you
the
get into the lab, you can go all the way back to the
yeah.
front hall of the mansion if you
It
want to.
doesn't have the power upgrade thing that I
That's
consider
true.
semi
That's true.
essential for one of those. But yeah, definitely has the same kind of map structure.
Yeah.
And also, like I
Double
said,
jump.
when you return to the mansion after the lab and there's different enemies, it also changes the
After
way
the
you
guardhouse.
yeah, it changes the way you interact with those spaces when there's more than just
Yes.
zombies around. And I think all
When
that stuff really works in its favor. It is definitely a thing of its time, but
yeah.
it is the original, but it's also fun in its own right, even 25 years later, I guess.
Which currently makes it the best Resident Evil ever
It's the best Resident
scientifically.
Evil. Yeah. Also,
For
yeah,
right
shout out
now.
to Giant Bomb's Ranking of Fighters series, which we both love, which is definitely an inspiration for what we're
Yes.
doing here
Yes.
tonight. So the next
Uh,
game, little Resident Evil
is
2 from 1998, the sequel to Resident Evil.
yeah.
Gameplay
So
wise, very
this
similar.
yeah, Resident Evil was the best-selling game on the PlayStation until Final Fantasy VII came out, which destroyed everything.
Everything.
That
Yeah.
game was such a huge deal. But Resident Evil was the best-selling game on PlayStation before that, and obviously a sequel was pretty much a foregone conclusion. And this is one of those things where, like, when I do same name, different game, I feel like at this point, one of my catchphrases is becoming the platonic ideal of a sequel. And I feel like Resident Evil 2 is absolutely the platonic ideal of a sequel. It's more of everything and better in like every way. I think. They're pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. Right. Mhm. About Resident Evil. No.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey,
Alex.
there I am. That
Do you like
was
Resident
loud out of
Evil?
control. No, I was gonna say, do you remember seeing in magazines? Remember game magazines? Do you remember seeing the like prototype version of Resident Evil 2 with like Eliza Walker and all that shit?
No.
I know.
No.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah, I
not
think we.
good. It's
It's
not good.
not. But, I think didn't we do a stream about that? I don't know.
We did. Yeah, we
Yeah, yeah,
did.
yeah.
2 years ago, I think it was. 2 years ago.
Yeah. At any rate, but like it looked fucking cool, and you're like, man, this game's gonna be fucking cool. And then the game that came out was way different, but guess what? It was
It
like
was still fucking
also
cool.
fucking cool.
Yeah. It's, it the zappings. Yes, yeah, right. The zapping system,
Debatable. Debatable.
the lack of a zapping system in games going forward, where you do interact with each other's story, is a real bummer for every game after this, because none of them really even tried it in any meaningful way, and that sucks, because the zapping system was sort of what, like, well, now this time I'm going to go back and I'm not going to kill the crocodile, or this time I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the machine gun, or I'm going to leave the side pack for Claire, or I'm going to whatever, and then playing the opposite campaign and sort of seeing how that pans out, and seeing totally different endings and stuff. Really totally, like, the way Ada dies is completely different in Leon's A scenario versus Leon's B scenario, stuff like that.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Also, just good. Like watching William Birkin evolve is a great,
Yes.
great monster. Also,
Yes.
so I don't know about you, but my opinion is that I think I like Resident Evil 2 more than Resident Evil 1.
I agree.
All right.
I think I have a William Birkin. I do. I have a Birkin. I have
A
a nope,
Birkenstock?
that's Castlevania.
That's I was gonna say.
Yes. No, I have a William Birkin pin right. Look at that. A glow in the dark William Birkin
Oh.
pin right here on the.
Scary.
Oh.
It's not quite focusing, but it's not glowing because there's too much light coming off my
In
monitor.
fact,
But
the
but
evolving
he glows.
William Birkin chasing you through the thing was such a success.
That the whole next game was based on
The whole next game was
getting
pretty much
chased.
based on being chased by a thing. Also, I mean, there was the right in
Well,
the B
Mr. X.
campaign, there was Mr. X in the
Mr.
tournament.
X, yeah.
Right. And so those two things led to Resident Evil
E-
3 Nemesis, which
Even though Mr. X's appearance are 100% scripted.
Yeah.
They're right. Like, you feel the first time you play the game, you feel like they're not, but they definitely are. In the original Resident Evil 2. Yeah, Nemesis. I don't know. I feel like the A team was on Code Veronica. If I'm being honest, I feel like I feel like
maybe
Nemesis is.
if that's the A team, then what it feels more like is maybe they split their powers and ended up with like two lesser products, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair.
1A and a 1B.
Yeah. So Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, it's a really interesting concept. I think that we'll get to the remakes later, but I think the remake does the thing that this game is trying to do a lot better than this game does.
A lot of people disagree with you, but I happen to agree.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who think the remake is way worse than the PlayStation version.
It's fine if people
I don't see
disagree,
it.
but I think that like the first chunk of this game takes place in the city of Raccoon City.
First hunk.
Yeah. Which in that whole area is
really
it is meant to
confusing
be
to navigate,
labyrinthine in a way that is meant to be authentic to what it would feel like to be running around in a city streets that were filled with zombies, and that's fine, but it doesn't. It's hard to figure out where to go, and it also this is of these three first games that take place on pre-rendered backgrounds. It's the only game where it's kind of hard to tell like where you can interact with things or where you can actually go. You actually kind of get stuck on things in a way that kind of miraculously the first two games don't have a lot of that, because there's so many terrible survival horror Resident Evil style ripoff games that we're just like, can I go here? Can I not go here? Like, is this an object that I can go around or not? And your character models are getting caught on stuff all the time. And I think once you master tank controls, that's not really an issue in the first two games. But the third one has some of that in a way that's not super great.
I mean, the third one also feels a lot more. I mean, the second one feels more action oriented than the first one, and the third one feels even more
Right.
action oriented than the second one.
I mean, the
I got
third.
news for you about the fourth one.
Well, so
Yeah, right.
we're actually, it's going to be a while before we get there,
I would
but
say we're not going to get to the fourth one quite yet.
but so the third one does introduce some really cool stuff. Like I do like that you can go up and down stairs without having to hit a button or without having to go into an animation, and that's really nice. Also, it has the quick turn. It's the first time you saw that in one of these games, and that is really useful. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they can make it more action oriented, because you can't
And the dodge
get
button.
Away. Right, there's a dodge button.
Which I think the timing on that, to do like the perfect dodge, is maybe a little too exacting, though.
Yeah.
But
Get good, scrub.
I guess.
uh-huh.
But yeah,
Whatever.
This game does have, I think, the one area that I really like in Resident Evil 3 that's not in the remake is the clock tower, which is kind of a cool, creepy area with some like kind of nice lore stuff. But I don't know, just like the Nemesis in this game always felt like a thing that was just more annoying than it was scary to me. It was just it was like a thing to impede your progress, and it felt that way. It never really felt like, in the best chase sequences and all the other Resident Evil games, like you can feel them like behind you, like in the room where you're playing, like they bring that tingle on your spine. And I never really felt that with the Nemesis. Also, he just looks dumb. He looks dumb.
I think he looks kind of threatening, but I think that everything else you said, I tend to agree with. But I also, this is one that I have not spent a lot of time with, and I really do need it at some point to just knuckle down and like get through the whole game, so I feel like I can give it maybe a little more fair of a shake. But as of right now, I would put it below the other two games.
It's okay. The worm boss is pretty neat. It's got that going for it. I don't know. It's also the one where the stories starts to kind of get away from them a little bit. And speaking of Resident Evil games where the stories get away from them a little bit, let's talk about Resident Evil Code Veronica.
So this is in a weird spot for me, because this game was part of the reason I got a Dreamcast.
Yeah.
I was super hyped.
The new Resident Evil game, you can only get it on Dreamcast. You got to get a Dreamcast, baby.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. I got a Dreamcast for Marvel vs. Capcom and fucking Soul Calibur, right? Like, but this was definitely a factor in the decision, was knowing that this was coming. And this the PS2 was a year out, more than a year out when the Dreamcast hit. And so even though you could probably have guessed that this game would come to the PS2 eventually, I think most, if you were a Dreamcast early adopter, you were like, well, I'm going to get it for Dreamcast because it's not going to be out on PS2 for at least a year.
We were dumb kids at the time, and we believed in console exclusivity, which really until
that was more of a thing.
Right. I was going to say up until this point, that kind of was a thing. It really wasn't until like around this time that it started to be that, all the games came out and everything.
It wasn't until everything came out on PS2.
Right.
Right.
Because it turned out not a lot of people bought Dreamcasts or GameCubes or Xboxes.
When we get to Resident Evil 4, we'll talk about console exclusivity and what a fucking joke that is. But this game...
Listen, PNO3 is still only available.
Still GameCube
exclusive. That's the one of the Capcom 5 or whatever that got released and remained a GameCube exclusive.
It's true.
The ballet shooting, robot ballet shooter. So my experience with this game, I mean, I played it on stream not that long ago, but like I haven't actually sat down and played a significant chunk of this game, let alone played through it, since I played it on Dreamcast. So my memory, like I'm really going off of a 21-year-old memory of this game, but I remember liking it quite a bit. I will say the little bits I've played of it more recently and some of the retrospective I've seen did kind of remind me of like, there's a lot of backtracking. And also, fighting the tyrant on the airplane is fucking hot garbage bullshit. That was a sticking point for like,
DPS
I thought it was
check.
just me.
DPS check. DPS check. Yeah.
Like at the time, I thought it was me, right? Like I was like, I must be not getting good enough.
It was
Scrub.
everybody. Yeah.
And then you hear from everybody, and they're like, I fucking tyrant on the plane, and it's like, oh, it wasn't just me. Like that was actually bullshit. But I did eventually get through it and finish it. And this was another one where kind of, again, in the wake of Resident Evil 2, I was like, well, I think it's cool that I play as Claire and I play as Chris, but like,
They don't really
why
interact.
not? Yeah, like why can't I pick one and then do it? Like I want it to be like Resident Evil 2 where there was a Chris campaign
Right.
and a Claire campaign and they would like overlap and there would be a zapping system, but no, it's just one long campaign where
Right.
you play the first half as
I
Claire
mean,
and then you get switch over to Chris.
as it turns out, the zapping thing is just really hard to design a game around. That's probably why you never saw it again.
Oh right, yeah.
You know,
and then this is
trying
also
to do
where
trying to do simultaneous storytelling like that is just fucking
Yeah.
hard. So in
And
this
is
game,
also where
they just
Wesker gets cemented.
you play through
Sorry.
an area as Claire, and then you play it again as Chris, and see all the things
Yes.
that change after Claire. Like you're in the wake of what Claire had done, which I still thought was a pretty neat gimmick at the time. Like it still worked for me. I still thought that was pretty neat.
Claire.
The Wake of Claire, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this is the first one that's all 3D, no pre-rendered backgrounds.
Right, the camera
which is
moves.
nice. It's weird because it actually, in terms of mechanics, because it was being developed around the same time as Resident Evil 3, it actually kind of feels like even though it came out a little after Resident Evil 3, it feels like a step back in some ways. It does have the quick turn, but I don't think it doesn't have a dodge, and and the stair is an animation rather than you being able to just go up and down them like you want. And so, you know, from that perspective, it feels like a little bit of a step back.
It does have Guns Akimbo though, which I think is pretty fun.
Cool. Yeah.
Guns Akimbo
This
stuff is
game,
fun.
it's such a weird game because like some of the other later Resident Evil games, like this is a game that is like it's very like the quality is very spiky. Like there's sometimes in the game where it's really really good, and then there's sometimes in the game where it really really fucking drags. There's like a whole like trap section where the main bad guy is like taunting you, and I remember finding that really boring. Like, and also this of the three Resident Evil games. Yeah, this one starts really slow. Like this island area is just kind of boring.
Yes.
But like the Antarctica lab is really cool. The part where you go back into the mansion, like where they've reconstructed the mansion in the lab, I thought was really neat. There's like the moss boss. There's like the lady.
The Bandersnatches are deeply silly though, right?
They're very silly, but they're silly in a cool way that I like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But this is where like Wesker goes from like one-off like scumbag, and then all this lore starts being written around Wesker. And I think Wesker's a cool character in some, but I think like he's better in like Resident Evil 4, where you only see him for like 2 minutes, and he's doing some shadowy shit. And then the more games you do until like 5, then all of a sudden he's like the big monster guy, and he's Matrix dodging. I mean, he was Matrix dodging.
He was Matrix dodging, and yeah, exactly. That's what excuse me. That's what I was gonna say. Is that Code Veronica is the one that introduced it? Like, fucking, they watched The Matrix too many times, and they're like, dude. What if Wesker was the Matrix? It's like, no, dude, why don't you shut the fuck up? And
also, sunglasses are really
that's
cool.
what Resident Evil became.
Sunglasses are very cool, yes. Also, he's rad as fuck to play as in Mercenaries mode in 4.
Also,
yeah, dude, he was my main boy. That's my guy.
As far as
I mean, Hunk has the neck snap, which is extremely good though.
As far as side characters go, Steve
sucks.
Steve is really annoying. Yeah, he's really annoying. I felt bad.
Everybody hates Steve.
Steve has a bad end, but he's not.
I'm still not sure if you're supposed to actually feel bad for Steve when that happens, or if it's supposed to be a Friday the 13th movie where you're supposed to just think it's funny when he gets like murdered by his dad monster or whatever the fuck. Or no, he becomes a monster, right? He becomes a monster.
You're saying he becomes a monster. It's like cathartic because you finally get to shoot the annoying little bastard.
Shoot him. There's this whole thing where he's also like clearly got a boner for Claire, and like she doesn't give a fuck.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that I hate that like Claire's love interest is this piece of shit.
She's not into it though.
She's also not interested at all, which I think is great. That's
one big misstep that they could have made throughout the series is making the two male and female leads romantically intertwined, and they never really do that except for in 3 kind of.
I'm actually really glad that they don't do that.
No, yeah,
I love that they don't do that.
It would make things very awkward, right? But like Chris and Jill are never really a thing until the later games.
There are some very good memes about how Chris wants Leon to fuck Claire and continue the Redfield bloodline.
Oh boy.
There's like a whole meme subgenre about Chris like trying to trick Leon and fucking Claire and stuff.
All right.
That's way too we don't care about that.
But yeah, I don't so Code Veronica X, I'd say there's a pretty good HD remaster that came out on Xbox 360. That's probably the one of these
It needs a
that I would
remake,
say to
though.
play. It needs a
the thing that
remake. It needs to be.
when
It needs a
3 came out,
rewrite. It needs a
yes.
remake. Um,
When the remake of 3 came out, I was like, Code Veronica. And then when they were like, we're going to remake 4, I was like, 4 is like a nearly perfect video game. Spoilers, I guess, for where we're going with this. But like, why are you remaking 4? Fucking remake Code. I mean, money is the answer because nobody gives a shit about Code Veronica. But like, that is a game that actually could be vastly improved by a remake.
Also, we need to reassess there's that one character that like becomes his own sister.
Yes,
and there's some transphobic
shit.
stuff in this game.
Really gross transphobic shit.
That ain't great. So I think that this and Resident Evil 3 are pretty close for me, but because of that and because I don't know,
I would put this over
Nemesis.
I would put this over Nemesis.
Right.
But like,
I slightly disagree, but I don't feel strongly one way or the other, so we can do whatever.
I'm either way. They're gonna end up being.
They're gonna fall some.
They're gonna tumble a bit.
Who can?
Well, here we can settle this. I'll be the tiebreaker, which is that I agree with both of you, and who cares?
Okay.
Oh, all right. Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, dude. I'm glad we were able to settle that.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll go back, but the one argument I would say more in favor of 3 is that it's because the mechanics are better, right? Because it has like the stairs thing and the dodge and all that stuff. I like that stuff.
It doesn't have double fisting gun and. Oh, we forgot that this game they were so proud of the fact that they finally made a fully 3D Resident Evil that it has a first person, mercenaries mode thing, which is interesting because the original concept for Resident Evil when they were first in the early planning stages is that Mikami and Tokuro Fujiwara wanted to do a first person game originally, and then they were like, we don't have the 3D know-how because Resident Evil was Capcom's first 3D game. They had never done a 3D game before. And they were like, we don't have the know-how and we don't think the PlayStation is quite powerful enough to pull it off. So that's why they ended up going with the Alone in the Dark route. But I think that was part of why they put that in Code Veronica as a bonus mode.
Well, it's funny you should say that they tried to make that they wanted to make a first-person Resident Evil game on the PlayStation because the next game in the timeline is Resident Evil Survivor or Resident Evil Gun Survivor, which is what I call it because the protagonist says at the beginning of the game, like, the only thing that can get me through is this gun.
So the real world shit happening around this game is this game came out like
before Code Veronica,
5 months after
3
Columbine.
Oh, after Columbine, yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And so they removed light gun support as if that has anything to do with anything, right? Like that's meeting the issue head on. The issue of youth gun violence can be solved by not making a peripheral compatible with the game in which the main action is still shooting. Right. Like it was but I'm told, and I haven't actually taken the time yet, but the European and Japanese versions of this game are maybe a little bit better because they have gun con support. Even though the game is still short and pointless and easy and there's not much to it, but I'm told that those versions are better. But I think we have to assess the American version here, which I have never actually really sat down and played, but I am told is just a fucking train wreck.
So my friend was a huge Resident Evil fan and I was the one in high school that had EGM and read the reviews and took all that shit seriously. And when this game tanked, I was like, I'll pass on it, but he did not. And so since Resident Evil was a thing that we both liked and shared, I ended up playing this game with him and watching him play through a big chunk of it. And like you said, it's super duper short and it's just like so it's a first person game where you swap from like a wander and look mode into a cursor on the screen, move the cursor around and shoot things mode.
Well, shoot with a gun con is what you're supposed to do.
Or shoot with a gun con, right? That's what you're supposed to do. That's the idea. But
which I think would probably make it a lot more tolerable, right? If you had that option.
I mean, so first person games on the PlayStation 1, the first Medal of Honor game is like maybe the one of those that you might be interested in playing. Most of them are pretty pretty bad for the most part.
Doom,
It's a tough thing.
Doom, the custom PlayStation edition, and
Uh-huh.
Final Doom are both like that's fine. They're
Yeah, but
totally
those don't
cromulent.
have aiming, right? Those are Doom.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's some other stuff. There's like Fade to Black is kind of an interesting
Oh,
first part.
oh,
I mean, listen,
wow.
for when that game came out, it was kind of interesting, right? But by the time I played it,
I
I'd
played
played
that
Quake
because
and
I
stuff,
loved
but
Flashback.
yeah.
I loved Flashback, and I was like, "Oh, a sequel to Flashback," and I was like, "What the fuck is
It's a
this?
mess. It's a
Like,
mess.
what
Yeah.
is this?"
Yeah. Anyways, my point is that we had not figured out how to do first person games on consoles. This game has analog control support, but is basically impossible to control that way because it's super duper swimmy. Like you need to use the D-pad so you can adjust left and right with the left and right arrows, and then use the up and down to go forward and backwards. But because this is on the PlayStation, and every single area is just like a rectangle with some monsters in it,
Uh-huh.
and that's the whole level design. Like that's it. And it's really boring, and the
I
story
mean,
isn't good, and
there are
like
later
there's
attempts to do light gun games with Resident Evil
that
that
are pretty
carry it off a
good.
lot better because they
Yeah.
actually just basically go like, "What if House of the Dead but with Resident
I
Evil
was gonna try
branding?"
and find. I played far enough to get to this one hallway. Oh, this is the hallway. It's just a hallway, and then a spider shows up, and then you kill the spider, and you just move on to the next area. Um,
So also because I know way too much about Resident Evil lore, the story of this game is so dumb. It's that your guy has amnesia,
he's a
and then
helicopter pilot, and there's like a guy dangling from the helicopter, and the helicopter crashes, and he gets amnesia, and then you get a mysterious phone call, and somebody says you're a name, and then you think you're that person.
right,
Um,
because anybody calling if you called a payphone and just said a name, if you answered it, you would assume you're the person they're talking to on the
right,
payphone.
obviously,
Obviously, how
yeah.
else would they have known to call you on that payphone?
Um,
So he believes that he's the one of the scientists at Umbrella who's like responsible for the outbreak along with Wesker and Birkin.
right.
And like that he's got this whole inner conflict about like I killed everybody. Holy shit. And at the end someone's just like, "No, you're not that guy. You're this other guy." And you're like, "Oh, I feel so much better
What
now.
a
What a
twist.
relief that I'm not that
Thank God
guy."
I didn't kill all those people. Yeah, pretty
Um,
good.
yeah, it's
I didn't
super
know
weird.
this. This sounds
Anyway,
awesome.
yeah, it's not. It's really not.
Oh, I know.
It's really a not. It's really a bad game. So I'm gonna put that at the bottom. Not just the
Yes,
bottom of the current
absolutely.
games, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be near the bottom no matter
I
how
was
this
gonna say it's
goes.
gonna be near the bottom of the whole list, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Even though
All
I've
right.
never played it, to be fair. But
So a pair of Resident Evil games came out in 2002. We're gonna
mm,
start with the remake of the original Resident Evil, which is fucking wild because that's only what, like 6 years after.
6 years,
I mean,
and
it's a
it's one of the
little.
best. It is one of, if not the best, video game remakes of all time. Camaristico says, "Happy Halloween." What's up? Happy Halloween, Camaristico. Um, one of the best, if not the best, remake in video game history. I mean, it's just it adds so much to the game in terms of new areas, new weapons, the graphics. Like if you want to talk, like this is a game that is a perfect example of how much between those two generations, like
Yeah.
what a leap you saw in visual fidelity between the PlayStation 1 N64 Saturn era and the GameCube Xbox PS2 era. Like that, this is an object lesson in like how big of a difference. And I feel like there really hasn't been another generation since then that
No,
has
definitely
demonstrated
not.
that big of a leap in
Right.
visual fidelity.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's just to look at. I mean, and of course they're cheating to some extent, right? Because they're still using pre-rendered backgrounds, so
But they
every
look good.
polygon on screen is dedicated to the character
Right. But
models, which
because of
is
the
why they
way
look
that
so
it's
good.
lit, like the
Yes,
character, the polygon models and the pre-rendered backgrounds integrate in a way that looks way more natural
yes,
than any other game that does
yeah,
this art style, frankly.
yes, yes, yes.
And it's just they pile on a bunch of new mechanics that are all really good, and a bunch of new
And
story stuff that's really good and really fleshes out the thing. Like it turns that super corny, super cheesy, still fun. Um,
still fun. They still nod to it. Like Barry now says, Another second, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich."
right.
And stuff like that, where it's not exactly the same cheesy line, but they're still kind of like
Right.
they're giving you the old you know.
Eh?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And Wesker, this is my favorite Wesker actor is DC Douglas, I think is his name, who did it for
Yeah.
like this and a couple of the games right after. He's just a treat as Wesker. He knows exactly what kind of thing he's doing, and he does it really well. And this is pre-steroid addled Chris, which I really
Mhm.
like. This model for Chris, where he's just sort of like, in shape but kind of average dude. I like for Chris. And it's just the game is just the it took them so long to bring back the sub weapons, like the counter weapons that you use
Mhm.
when you're attacked, and that mechanic is really great. Now having the quick turn there is really great. Um, the burning the zombies mechanic is like
The
it adds
deads,
a
the
bit of
re-deads, baby.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, really just that all that stuff is really wonderful. And
Changes the way
the
you think about in a game where you're constantly traversing the same spaces over and over and over again. It makes you really consider how
and
dangerous it is to go through those spaces.
And the whole Lisa Trevor, like that's a tragic monster story. That's like a Frankenstein's monster. The monster is misunderstood, but also dangerous. But also
Yeah.
you feel bad for the monster. That whole arc with her
I
is
think
wonderful.
arguably probably the best version of that maybe in the series.
Yeah.
Trying to
Well,
think
she's
if I
also a
could think
great
of a better
pursuer
one. I
monster.
guess I
She's
guess
not as good of a pursuer monster as some of the later ones, but she's good. She creeps you out when she's chasing you around the caverns.
right, with the big
And
chains and stuff.
yeah,
A lot of
and
face
she
ripping. She does a lot of it's, but like
yes.
that's more in the backstory than the actual. But
She's like Leatherface. She has like
yeah.
four faces that she's wearing. But she also her section gives you one of those like there's just so many the really good games in the series have a lot of little things that you can get or find or little weapons you can use and one of my favorites is if you're playing as Jill and you let Barry die during the Lisa Trevor fight, you can take his magnum.
Hmm.
And you can't get the best ending anymore because Barry's dead, but his Magnum has 6 shots. There's no more ammo for it in the rest of the game because it uses special rounds. But you can one shot everything except Lisa because she's invincible. And the rooftop tyrant fight. But every other enemy in the game will go down in one shot to Barry's Magnum. Which is also hilarious because he shoots the first zombie 3 times before it dies, which tells me that Jill is a much better marksman than Barry, as it turns out. That's what that tells me. So,
Maybe that one zombie was real tough. You don't know that guy.
he was a super super tough zombie.
He was really fit. He was
Yeah,
always working out. Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, but the graveyard area and the area under the crypt where you have to put the death masks to get the thing to go out
Super
back, where you have to
creepy.
fight that's really the atmosphere is just A+ in this whole thing.
Scariest thing in the series until much later. I think like the
Yeah.
creepiest area in the series
Yes.
until
Yeah.
let's say fully 15 years later. I would say looking at this list.
Yeah. That
But
sounds about
we'll
right.
get there. But yeah, anyways, I think that it is a really good remake, and just a I think I don't know where do you want to put this?
I would put it right behind Resident Evil 2.
Okay,
I think that it's
I
just
think that
not quite as good as RE2 in terms of a classic style, tank controls, fixed camera angles Resident Evil. I think this is right behind RE2
yeah, I
in
think
my
I
view.
agree with that. I think that the thing that really the thing that keeps Resident Evil 2 ahead of this one is that it
The zapping system.
yeah, the two characters, the zapping system, all that interaction stuff, like that stuff is still kind of unique to that game. And but this game is really good. It still holds up. Like that HD remaster that came out on Steam is excellent.
Yeah,
And also
absolutely.
you can swap seamlessly back and forth between tank controls and old controls. But it's
And
actually it's surprising when you boot this up how good it still looks for a game that's almost 20 years
yes,
old.
yes. And also how kind of broken the game is without the tank controls because you can move
Yeah.
so fast and
Yeah.
such you don't have to like turn around in
Yeah.
awkward ways.
Also, so all the previous games where they put analog controls in, they had a real hard time
Yeah.
tracking your character movement from screen to screen, so it would like get confused when the camera would change. But this game actually do a pretty good job of keeping it
The one thing I
the
don't
way
like
you
about
want.
the HD version of this is they gave Jill ridiculous boob physics.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I didn't. I forgot about that, but yeah, it sucks.
Like, why does Jill have boob physics? Like,
know.
if she was wearing, she's basically a SWAT
Right.
officer.
She's got great big shoulder. Like that's another
Presumably wearing
thing.
tactical
We're
gear
almost
under her
yeah.
sweater, and her boobs are just like, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're rapidly approaching the period of the series where the character designs kind of go in the toilet. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
Jill, when you're not
GameCube
moving,
version,
Jill looks like a person that would be in a combat situation, right? Or like in a police action situation. All the characters do. But then when you run, there's just like this weird little flop going on, and it sucks.
so they're kind of there in the GameCube version, but they like cranked them up for the HD version, and I don't know why they thought Jill needed these ridiculous boob physics, but whatever.
I know why, which is that hey, boobs.
HD stands for honkin'
I
double
doobies.
D's. I don't know.
No,
Anyway,
doobies are
Hooter,
different.
Hooter definition.
yeah. Huh?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well done. We got there,
Um,
folks. Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't have. Should we let's move on to this other game that came out the same
Yes.
year?
This game sucks. Fuck this game.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Resident Evil 0. I think that I have an
This is one that-
appreciation for it trying to do something different. I mean, we've seen by
Listen,
2002.
can I talk to you? Can I talk to you guys for 1 second? Can
Yeah.
I interrupt you?
Yes.
I wish they had more stuff where one guy does a thing and it interacts with the other person. I wish that there was more stuff where the people interact with each other.
Yeah,
well,
this is
motherfucker,
not-
Capcom listened, you
this
idiot.
is not what we meant. This is not what I meant.
It's
Uh,
just
like
this is the
that.
same thing with like Street Fighter 5, which is Capcom was like, "Hey, we heard your complaints about Street Fighter 4, and we made this game that's everything you asked for." And they're like, "It sucks." It's like, "Oh, well." Same fucking thing. These guys listened to you and made a game
Right.
that you
Yeah,
hate.
yeah. So here's the thing about Resident Evil 0. I think
Yeah.
similar to Code Veronica, I think there's actually a great remake in here. And as like an RE5 style co-op game, RE0 could be awesome.
Could be. Yeah.
But because there is no option for co-op and you have to manage two characters at once, to the point of even using the second analog stick to make the second one walk in some instances, and they can be attacked if you leave them alone in a separate room.
Mhm.
This game is bullshit. Oh, also no item
No
boxes.
item boxes.
Fuck
yeah. So
that.
when you run out of space in your inventory, it's nice that you can just drop
Put them on the
things,
floor.
but it
Yeah.
sucks ass that you have to remember where you dropped
Get
that
the other
thing,
person
or
to
else
go
you're
get it.
completely fucked, right? You kind of
That-
actually one thing that they could have added to this game that would make it way more playable is if you could
Item
annotate.
boxes.
Well, no item boxes obviously, but if you could annotate the map, right?
Yeah.
If you could
would
make a
help.
note on the map, like I dropped this key here, or I dropped like a big pile of ammo here, so you don't have to remember where it is. Also, I think the train stuff is cool, but like this main baddie guy that sings and summons these worms is just kind of.
Leeches.
It's
yeah,
really like this is also
the leech ghost of James Marcus.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
It's a little silly.
It's also it retroactively fucks up the first game because why is Rebecca such a fucking
I don't
baby
know.
when she's
Yeah.
already like killed a giant leech monster?
Yeah, I'm
Which
not
is-
Billy is also like a bottom tier Resident Evil companion, I
Really
think.
sucks.
I don't
That's why he's
really-
never been in another game.
Yeah.
This is another one that had troubled development, right? It started life on the game, on the N64,
Right.
and I think there's a leaked ROM dump of that now, isn't there? That you can play the N60, some part of the N64 version.
I definitely
feel
remember
like.
there being some like screenshots and stuff, but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
playable or not. But
But the RE2 on the N64 version of RE2, part of it was like hype building for this RE0 that was coming to the N64. So some of the files that are exclusive to the N64 version of RE2 reference Billy and the train and the whatever. So
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, look, this is what you're gonna look forward to this shit. Fuck that. This game sucks. I would say it goes above Survivor. And
it's
that's
definitely
it.
yeah, I agree.
This game
Yeah.
is fucking balls. It's
Yeah,
aggravating as
I
hell.
wish it was better. There's a world where this game is kind of decent, but we ain't living in it.
I'm saying if they remade it with co-op, I think it could be a blast if they remade it in the style of
We
the
need
two
we need
takes with co-op.
we need
like
a really
Raccoon.
good co-op Resident Evil game that's not super duper grossly racist.
Yes,
That's
that would be
that's
nice.
my official opinion. All right, so let's move on to 2003, which is a game called Resident Evil Dead Aim, which I didn't think I had played until I took a look
Until you
at it,
played
and I
it,
was
and
like,
then
"Oh
you were like, I
shit,
did play
we
this.
definitely played this." My friend Jason and I, the same person that I played, this might have been like one of the last things, probably yeah, right, one of the last things we played together. But this is the
Before he was eaten by zombies.
before he was eaten by zombies. Yeah. So this is actually the third game in the Gun Survivor series, which those games also there was a game that never came out in the U.S. called Gun Survivor. It was like called Survivor
Code
2 Code
Veronica.
Veronica something or other, and it came out in arcades in Japan and came out on like PlayStation
PS2.
2 in Europe and Japan, I think.
Europe and Japan,
So I've never messed with that.
Me
This
neither. I know that
game,
Nemesis is in it for some reason. Like it's a Code Veronica. It's based on Code Veronica, but Nemesis shows up and chases
yeah,
Claire around
I
for
don't.
some
I
reason.
mean, so it's an arcade thing, right? So it's like the arcade version of Half-Life or whatever. They're just kind of like
Turns
throwing
out
a bunch
Yeah,
of
right.
Resident Evil
Nemesis
stuff,
is the last Smash Bro.
and
Yeah,
they're
right.
just throwing a bunch of this stuff in a hopper. This game,
Right.
man.
So this is another one that I've heard if you play it with a gun con, which I've kind of been looking for a copy of this game lately because I
Mhm.
have a gun con and a CRT now. So I've been like, I kind of want to see how, because I've heard people say like, no, if you play it with a gun con, it's actually like, it's not, Resident Evil 4 good or whatever. It's not a top tier
It's
Resident Evil game, but it's
playable.
like pretty fun if you play it
I
with a
don't.
gun.
So
Or
this
with a
game.
mouse. Apparently it's PlayStation mouse compatible. Or if you
Oh,
use a
really?
USB mouse with your PlayStation.
Oh, I
plug
didn't
it
think to
into
hook that
your-
up. I should have. So you should
Oh.
play it with just play it in the third person adventure mode before you get to the combat and understand that this game has like the worst tank controls I've ever had in any video game ever, because
Oh, no.
it like the camera, like when you, instead of turning the character, like the tank like turns like the camera kind of, and then when you hit up, the character
no.
turns to align itself with the camera,
the
and so
camera.
it's just like
Oh,
you're
no.
constantly swimming around. It's horrible. It really, and it also, because it's based on like this arcade style shooting thing, it's also just like a series of rectangles with monsters in it, and it's not good. It's got a dumb story.
Sounds like
and-
another game with a gun that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's better than that one, apparently.
All right, well,
I don't know if
The
it's better
US
than that one or
version-
not. I don't know.
US version uses.
I'm gonna put them next to each other
Yeah,
because I neither one of these games is very good, frankly.
that's kinda what I figured.
But that's enough. That's enough. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
yeah. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Let's move on to the next thing. We'll be here all
Um,
night if we spend like 10 minutes. On
Yeah,
every
we
one
don't.
of
We
these.
it's not. It isn't worth it. So the next game is from 2004. It's called Resident Evil Outbreak.
yeah.
Oh boy, this is a game. Did you play this at the time or no?
No, I didn't have
Yeah.
So I played.
Alex,
I
I
played
played
it
a little bit.
at the time, but I had to play the single player version because I did not have the internet adapter for
Yeah.
my
Same.
PlayStation, and trying to play this game single player is kind of a fucking nightmare because the AI
even
is
Playing it multiplayer was a nightmare because there was no voice chat, so you had to use like emotes
Yeah.
to try to get your.
That's
people
what
to
I
do
remember about
you-
this game is spamming emotes and it being really fucking funny.
yeah.
So I think that this is another one where I feel like it was maybe a bit ahead of its time, and if you could play this
Yeah.
now,
It was 5 or
Yeah.
6 years ahead of its time
Yeah.
at least. Yeah.
if you could play this game now with it, because it's four players or 6 players. Or
It's
something,
4.
right?
There's like 6 or 8 characters, but I think it's 4 players at a
That's
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds right.
Because
I
they
think if
dump
you could
all 4
play-
players into a map, and then each player is given like a list of tasks that they have to complete, and then all the characters have different abilities. So like one guy is good with gun combat, one guy's good with melee combat. There's a lady that can carry extra items. There's a lady
Right.
that can pick locks. There's a
Pick
dude
locks,
that can
yeah.
craft ammo. So like you want to mix and match these characters, and everybody has to play their role. It's a really fascinating idea, but like I said, no
I
voice
even
chat and not having an online adapter, and the AI, especially in this first one, is really it's like playing with the 3 fucking Stooges, man. They're just like they're like running around randomly, or like the Marx Brothers, that thing in the Marx Brothers where they're opening doors and like running back and forth across the hallway or
Yes.
whatever.
Right,
Yeah, it's like that. It's just, and you can give the AI like voice command directions from the
right.
the emote prompt thing, but it's like a suggestion, and most of the time they're like running out and getting killed, and it's just it can be an exercise in frustration, but it's a fascinating concept. It's a thing that I really wish that they would revisit. Although I guess they kind of did. There's a couple other later games, and we'll get to those.
There's another. I mean, I feel like we can kind of lump these two together, right? Unless you wanted to do them separately. But
I have
feel
them
like
separate, but they're right next. They came out like a year apart from each other,
right.
so
yeah, I think we can rank them together because they're basically the second one is like a map pack, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
First one, so it's like. I think if I don't know how EPSXE2 like does with online stuff, but this is the kind of thing where like I feel like if there were 4 of us who were interested in playing it,
be fun to try
and we could get it working through an emulator, and we could actually play it the way it was on Discord where we talk to each other, we might have some fun with it. But I don't know how big of a pain in the ass it is to get that working through an emulator.
So I want to put these. I don't know. You can put these below 0.
I would put them below 0 and above Survivor. Right. Yeah,
we'll put them in the middle there for now. I'll put them next to each other. I think that's a good way to work that.
If we're putting Dead Aim and Survivor next to each other, I think we can put the Outbreaks next to each other for sure. Because again,
I want those games to be better. I want to like them. But they're just the tech just really wasn't there, especially on consoles, right? Like there was a lot of good online PC games at the time. I also think this game looks really nice. I like the character designs and the art and stuff, but you can kind of see in this part of the video where I've got the waitress is supposed to be following me, and she keeps like running past me, and then she runs like back by, and then she gets attacked by the zombies, and here I'm shooting through this door, and she just like goes cruising by. I don't know. Anyways, all right, let's move on. I think to a game that is maybe worth a game that we've all played.
Do tell.
That be?
It could be Resident Evil 4, which came out the same year as Outbreak 2, 2005.
I'm gonna throw something out there, and I think you guys will agree with me. One of the best video games ever made.
It's pretty good.
Up there, yeah. I would say it's in the conversation for best of that generation, next to Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah,
I think it's really the only.
I mean, it's not as good as Katamari Damacy.
Katamari Damacy, right? I knew you were going to say that, but yeah. I mean, this is a divisive. I mean, at the time, this is weird because at the time it wasn't divisive. Everybody fucking loved it, and now it's a divisive game because there's a bunch of people who are like really big fans of the old style of Resident Evil game who say that retroactively like this game ruined Resident Evil, which I think is.
I mean,
there is always this phenomenon, right? Of like, there is a thing that comes through that sort of changes the paradigm and it's good, but then there's a bunch of bad imitators of that thing that come in its wake. And then that thing retroactively gets blamed and people are like, well, that sucked actually because of what it did, like, there was one I was just thinking of and now Scream. Like Scream sucks retroactively because it ruined horror movies for the rest of the 90s. And it's like, first of all, horror was already in the fucking toilet in the 90s by the time Scream came out. And second of all, Scream is fucking brilliant. And just because, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer came out in the wake of Scream does not retroactively fuck up how good Scream is.
It's actually one of the reasons why Scream is so good is because it's one of the few good 90s horror movies. But anyway, whatever. I mean, these games, like, we're not ranking them based on their influence on future whatever. We're ranking them based on how much we like this particular individual game. And I like this game a whole lot. I think, I mean, so this was the reason I bought a GameCube mostly. I mean, this and Mario and Zelda. And unfortunately the Mario game was Mario Sunshine, but the Zelda game was really good. So it worked out. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But yeah, like this game, we're gonna
the best Mario Kart is on GameCube. So
shut up.
Anyway, we're gonna change what Resident Evil is. We're gonna flip the camera around behind your character, and
that's the other funny thing. People are like, "This is the one that got rid of tank controls." And I'm like, "Yo, the controls are the same. You're just locked to the dude's back.
They changed the
controls
perspective.
Are the same.
Yeah,
up still moves forward all the time,
and you still turn with left and right. Yeah.
Yep. Just behind Leon's back. But this game is it's got a really good dog.
That's what Resident Evil 4 is known for. It's really good dog.
Just wait till we get to the ranking of video game dogs.
Right. Hey, it's that dog.
It's a good dog. Yeah. Hey, it's that
It
dog.
is a good dog.
That dog
Yeah.
attacks the El Gigante for you, unless you're a cold-hearted motherfucker who leaves the dog in a bear trap, you asshole.
I was gonna make a joke about you shouldn't talk about Ashley that way, but then I remembered the actual good dog, and I was like, oh yeah, the dog. Like,
Also,
Ew.
Ashley, like a lot of people bitch about Ashley, and like you can put her in a dumpster and like 90%
yeah, no,
of
Ashley is the best.
escort. She's fine.
Ashley is the best escort mission in any video game because you don't have to escort her. You can just put her away somewhere and then fight everyone.
So okay,
There's like two
there's some
sniper sections
parts
where you
there's some
can't do
parts
that.
in the castle
Right.
that really fucking suck to have Ashley around, where she gets carried away, or there's like they're throwing
You have to
waves of
shoot the
guys at
guy
you,
to-
or
Eh.
or you're trying to
So,
like crank the
but
thing, and it's a
that
real
also
pain in the
gives
ass.
you one of the best bonus items in Resident Evil history, which is Ashley's suit of armor that you unlock after beating the game, which makes it so that your bullets cannot hurt her, and that she's too heavy for any of the Ganados to pick up. So if they
And-
try to pick her up, they just fall down.
So you just saw me
Rules. 'Cause
jump
they
out
do
the
try to pick
window,
her
push
up.
X to jump out window, which is an incredible innovation in video games.
Yes.
Pushing double tapping to kick open the door never ever stops being satisfying. It's one of the most
Never
satisfying
stops being
things in video
satisfying.
game history. It's incredible.
You know what else
I love
never
it.
stops being satisfying?
Duplexing a guy in their head
Exploding a dude with a belly-to-belly suplex.
Exactly.
I just at a point once I realized how to do that every time, I would just kneecap everybody and then suplex them.
You're like
once
the reverse hunk
yes
scenario.
right. Kneecap them and suplex them to explode their heads. I mean the
The
atmosphere
merchant,
is
the gun
where
upgrading system's really
gun
great.
upgrading system,
Yeah.
and the opening sequence and the like Night of the Living Dead thing with Lewis, where you're in the house and the Ganados
Yeah.
are trying to break through the windows. People are like, well, now they do that in almost every game. There's like a RE4 cabin alike in every subsequent Resident Evil, and none of them are as good. And it's like, that's true, but the one in Resident Evil 4 is still really good.
It's the same thing as what you're just saying. It's not their fault
Right,
that
it's
like
not their
the
fault
original was fucking cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also this game didn't just change Resident Evil. Like this game changed third-person action games.
Mhm.
Like I think there's probably a debate to be had about whether Gears of War exists or not without Resident Evil 4.
Well, so
There isn't a debate. Cliffy B has said that they
right.
got inspiration from that.
It's this game and Kill Switch basically are the
Right.
two things that make Gears of War happen, and then because of that, it's like defines the next entire generation of video games to a certain extent. I think there's the good side of that, right? Is because there's a lot of, I mean, I love the Gears of War series, and once you get wall bouncing and like strafe aiming and stuff like that, the movement and things way better. I wish. No, I don't think so, but that'd be awesome.
Eric's perfect video game.
I would love that. Yeah, that'd be awesome. If I could go into this cabin and then like stick to a wall, and then like shotgun somebody, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think. But the other, the flip bad side of that, right, though, is that this is one of the games that sets up the next generation of brownness being like the predominant color palette of video games, and that's kind of a bummer.
I feel like they were kind of already on their way there. There's a lot of PS2 games that are extremely brown.
Yeah.
Before this. Oh yeah, and so exclusivity. Apparently Shinji Mikami said he would cut off his own head if this game ever appeared on a system besides the Nintendo GameCube.
And then it's
And
outside
he's
of
dead.
He's had to cut his head off several dozen times because it's outside of Doom. It's like maybe the most ported game in video game history. It's on everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But well deserved. It fucking rules.
Yeah.
This game
rules.
is so there's like a moving around feels good and shooting guys feels good.
Yes.
A lot of good
like it
guns.
just a lot of people when like Resident Evil 5 came out and they made it so like you could turn with the left or the right stick, like people were like, finally they've updated the Resident Evil 4 like art, and I'm like, nah dude, it still feels so good.
Yeah,
like
feels
just
really
to
good.
be and it's like no, obviously Resident Evil 5 you could change the controls back to that, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna do that. Like fuck this, like reject modernity, embrace tradition. Like fucking give me tank controls, dude. Let's go.
I don't know.
Like,
I think once we got into the more later era third person Resident Evil games, I like the newer controls better. But this is fine. I mean, this game still mostly holds up. I think that the biggest negatives about it, aside from the color palette choices, is just that it's kind of too long. Like it has a lot in common with like Capcom is like catching up with, like, if Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2 are like 80s movies, this is like a bloated 90s action movie. And this is like a good one, right? This is like Bad Boys or True Lies or something, a movie that's bloated and too long, but also like has so much good stuff in it that you still like it. And maybe some of the later Resident Evils are more like a Judge Dredd or Collateral is Collateral Damage, right? That's a anyways.
That's the Schwarzenegger one that goes delayed because 9/11, but eventually came.
But yeah, anyway, like that's like there is like a lot of the sections are kind of a little too long. But there's a lot of cool boss fights.
The island shit is a bit much, but
the island stuff goes a little too
I like
far.
the village and
the
the
castle's
castle
a little
great.
too long, I think.
I like the castle.
I think there's too many
it.
kill box rooms in the castle. Like they could have edited a couple of those out, and I think it's a better game. I like the boat fight with this giant salamander monster. I think that's a really unique thing that gets referenced maybe in some later Resident Evil games, but was kind of something different that I'd never really seen in a video game before.
The fight with Krauser is fucking cool.
The fight with Krauser.
See, that's one of the other things that's
the QuickTime events.
The QuickTime events in this game, right? That's one of the bad things. That actually might be the worst thing that this brought to the series and to video games in general. Although I guess that comes from the QTEs come from Shenmue.
Right, Shenmue had them. Some of the didn't the Activision Spider-Man game on PS2
probably
have them?
I mean, then Shenmue is the OG.
Codified.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it turns the game into Dragon's Lair for 5 seconds or whatever.
But that was like the hardest part. The hardest part in this fucking game is the Krauser fight in the castle because of the QTEs. That was the only part.
You actually fight him when he's mutated and there are no QTEs.
No, but when you're running around in the parapets and stuff,
The thing that's bullshit about the QTEs in this game is they come in the middle of cutscenes. So you're kind of like just watching the scene, and all of a sudden it's like, do something, and like if you don't, you're fucking dead.
Right. If you're watching the cutscene, and then you have to watch the fucking cutscene again, which sucks ass.
I think you were taking the wrong angle on it, which is like, you're not paying attention. You're taking a drink of soda or something, and then Leon gets a knife in his heart. You're like, oh shit, dude.
Yeah, so the first time that happens, it's cool, but then like the second or third time, you're sitting there watching the fucking cutscene again. It's really annoying.
Yeah, I'm being. I'm joking.
Also, I'm gonna say my like the version that looks best is if you get there's a giant fan mod. It's like 30 gigs or whatever for the Steam version. That one looks the best. But I honestly think the one that I have the most fun with still is the Wii edition.
I agree.
With the pointer aiming.
It's pretty fun.
It kind of breaks the game because it almost makes it too easy to shoot everything. But that's
you don't have to worry about
it.
positioning as much in that version.
Yeah.
You can do some like cross shots and stuff that you would not be able to pull off in other versions of the game.
Right. Also, apparently the VR version for Oculus 2 is really good, but fuck Facebook. So
yeah, I'm hoping that comes to. Between that and Half-Life Alyx, maybe if that comes to the Vive, if it's on Steam, maybe that's what gets me to shell out the big bucks for a nice VR headset.
What were you asking me about Half-Life? Yes, I am gonna make that joke every time.
Right. So I don't know where to rank. Where would you rank this one?
Well, I moved all the cruft down a spot, so the debate for me is I think that this probably goes above the Resident Evil remake, but maybe below Resident Evil 2. But I would hear arguments for this being number 1 or number 3 based on our charting.
Not where I would have expected you to rank this based on what you guys have said in the past.
There will be no argument from me because on my last several replays of original RE2, I realized how fucking good that game still is. When I did that video, the big video 2 Halloweens ago, I was like, fuck man, this game still fucks. And I will put RE2 over RE4 at this moment. But yeah, I think probably RE4 just barely above the Resident Evil remake. It's once you get up there, like those three are definitely like a cut above everything else in this list, even the first game, which
Yeah.
is still good.
I think
And the
I
first
feel
game is like
all
a cut
right with
above.
that.
Like if we had a tier thing here, like that would be the S tier, and then RE1 would be the A tier, and then everything else would be below.
B and C. Yeah.
B,
Well, maybe we could throw
C,
that together before we leave here.
perhaps. Yes,
I don't know
yes.
what I want
Where's everybody going? Bingo.
to.
Yeah. Also, Leon action hero Leon Kennedy with his ridiculous one-liners is just fucking fantastic.
Adler,
Where's everybody going?
you are small time.
Yeah.
Your right hand comes off.
Yeah. Different kind of bad dialogue. Not as enjoyable to me as the bad dialogue in the original Resident Evil, but
Well,
still,
sure, but
Well,
still a good time.
you know,
All right.
you are
So,
almost
all right, let's move
anyway,
on.
it's like the best video game ever made. Okay, thanks.
Or the second best Resident Evil game ever made.
So what is next? What's
All right. So next would be speaking of games that are better on Wii U or only on Wii U. Actually, I think there's a PlayStation 3 port of this, which is Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles.
Yeah, they ported to something.
Did it? I don't think it.
I'm pretty sure both of these games came out on PS3 like 6 years later because we talked about it on an old On the Stick podcast way back in the day. Yeah, you should check it out. But
I'm looking, yeah.
Because there's
Resident
two
Evil Umbrella
and,
Boy.
PS3 as well.
Yeah, because I've been
Yeah,
looking at
no,
I looked at the
for a
Wikipedia
move.
pages a lot
Yep.
the last couple of days.
Oh yeah, July 17th. Resident Evil Chronicles HD collection for the PlayStation 3.
Actually,
Yeah.
it came out in the U.S. 2 days before it came in Japan.
Yeah, so we have reached the point. So the early games, like Resident Evil, came out like almost a year earlier in Japan, but now at this point we've reached the point where it's like worldwide parity. Which is actually like kind of an interesting thing tracking the series, right? Is because we've gone from the era where like Japanese game like would read about a game that came out in Japan in a magazine and like maybe like 6 or 8 months later, if you were lucky, it would come out and maybe the translation would be super janky. But now we're in the mid 2000s and stuff's kind of coming out all at the same time. And
I mean, weirdly though, like the original Resident Evil came out like 2 weeks.
Was it pretty close?
They were both March of '96, Japan and US. And then the European version came out in like the summer.
Yeah.
But they were both March for Japan and US.
So
yeah.
Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, I think I played not this one, but the other one. And I think you said you played both of these.
I played both of them. And this is one where you might almost want to put them side by side, like Outbreak and the Gun Survivor games.
Yeah.
They're better than the Gun Survivor games. I honestly think they're probably also better than
Outbreak, I'd say.
Outbreak games. You know, honestly, I think I had more fun with these than I did with Resident Evil Zero.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, they're basically retelling. This is doing the Lycan thing right. Basically, this is like What If House of the Dead, but Resident Evil. Some people don't like that. Dark Side Chronicles has like a lot of camera shake, which makes it hard to aim sometimes, which is a little bullshitty, I guess. But
it definitely feels like Leon is got his head in a paint shaker or something sometimes when you're playing that game. It is a little all over the place. But
I think I would put both of these below Nemesis but above Zero is probably where I would put these two games. I currently only own Dark Side Chronicles. I don't have a copy of Umbrella Chronicles, which I actually looked just to see like what if I wanted to like add that to my collection, and it's actually not very expensive. So maybe I'll just
you can get it on PlayStation 3.
That's true, but I don't have a Move.
Yeah.
So I do have several Wii remotes though.
So yeah, I played. You can see I was playing this on Dolphin, and it was struggling a little bit sometimes. But yeah, so the first one is like a collection of vignettes. This first one from Resident Evil 0, but I think it has stuff from other bits and pieces of other Resident Evil games.
It's like Wesker is narrating this like a history of. It's like a recap of. It's a clip show. Wesker's clip show. Wesker got locked in the freezer and is reminiscing about all of his past adventures.
But so then the Dark Side Chronicles, which is the one I played, tells like it's like the backstory of Leon and Krauser. It's like their adventures together when they were in the whatever
thing they were in. Yeah, I don't remember.
But you can see in this, I think having played both of these today, this one looks quite a bit better. Although I definitely agree that the head movement, which I'll skip to here a little bit, gets to be a little bit much in some places. But yeah, these games are just like a good time. I played it co-op with a friend, and we had a lot of fun. It's a pretty good one of those, especially because the Wii is one of the few systems where the default controller actually makes sense for this kind of game.
Right.
You don't have to have a special peripheral to.
Right. Although I've heard those Nyko perfect shot, like 9mm gun shells that you snap your Wii remote into the top of are pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't need one for sure. I played through most of both of these, and I played through all of House of the Dead Overkill with just a standard Wii remote, and worked fine. Works fine. Man, House of the Dead Overkill is so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Off topic, but House of the Dead Overkill is better than both of these fucking games. That's
well,
for damn
now
sure.
that we're talking about something else, we should move on to the next. In 2009, same year as Darkside Chronicles, we get Resident Evil 5.
Yeah.
Which this is a tough
weird
one
for me. This was weird for me looking this up recently because I was trying to remember, and the biggest gap between mainline series entries was between 4 and 5.
Yeah,
which feels weird. It feels like it should have been between 6 and 7 because there was such a huge sea change.
That was also like through 4 years or something, almost 5 years.
Right. But between 4 and 5, like all you did was make the same game again, but now it's co-op and also racist.
Yeah, I mean so this game, like I remember in E3 like 2008, I think, is when Guy Carroll, who was a writer, wrote about video games for Newsweek, and he wrote a really great article about the imagery in this game and how it like played on all these racist tropes. And I mean, that was back in the day when people didn't really write about video games in that way. And so people reacted as you would expect, with a bunch of ridiculous, stupid outrage.
Like racists.
Yeah, like a bunch of racist assholes, basically.
Well, no, I think people reacted like people who felt like they weren't racist but were being called racist for enjoying something because they don't understand nuance.
Right.
You know,
but those aren't necessarily the same thing.
I don't think everybody who got upset about Guy Kroll's article is a racist necessarily, but I think they could probably stand to genuflect a little bit if they're still mad now.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's probably a lot of people that would be mad about that. But so anyway, that was kind of I remember GFW radio talking about that a lot. And I think Guy was on maybe One Up Yours to talk about that article. Anyway, it was like an early, it was like an early actual criticism about video games. And that was before the game even came out. And then the game came out and it was every bit as racist as it looked like it was going to be in the trailer.
It was, I think it was worse because I don't think the trailer didn't show like the people who like regress to the tribal state or whatever the hell they, the game explains what's happening.
So
there.
in the game, so I want to say that I don't even know if Sheva was in that early trailer. So they added, I don't know if they added her or if they just hadn't showed her yet. And then they also added a bunch of zombie models that are like kind of white or they look kind of Indian to me or whatever. But that's not why the game is racist. They kind of missed the point. And there was still that scene where they like drag that white lady back into the thing. And it's just it's really bad. And then you spend like the whole game. I wish Sheva would come back. I like Sheva.
Yeah, Sheva, like Billy Cohen deserves to be written off, but fucking Sheva deserves to come back. Bring back fucking Sheva.
This time, Sheva and Mercenaries is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
So separating. So the game has a bunch of racist stuff in it. There's no debate about that. It's a game that is, because of that, has aged extremely poorly just over the course of the like 11 or 12 years that it's been out. Like because of that, it was racist back then, and now it looks even worse than it did back then. But the game itself, if you're playing co-op,
super fun. If you're playing
co-op, it's really, really fun. The Mercenaries mode has the best Mercenaries mode. We didn't talk about that in Resident Evil 4, but the co-op Mercenaries mode in Resident Evil 5 is incredible. Like it has all kinds of unlocks and maps, and it has a really cool combo system. This is a game that I played co-op with my brother, played co-op with our friend Maddie. I played co-op with Kurt. I played co-op
Yep.
Mike to
Played it with
completion. And you and I played a couple hours of it last year, and it was still fun. And when you beat it, you unlock stuff, and then you can bring that stuff back into the campaign at any point.
So I literally bought this 360 memory card, which nobody had a 360 memory card, because why would you? I bought this specifically so I could keep my save game and go hang out with my friend John and play co-op with him at his house, split screen co-op, and then take my save game back home and either play with him on Xbox Live or whatever and not lose my progress. So like that is the only reason that I have this 360 memory unit, is just so I could do that. And I don't think I ever even used it for a different game. I think Resident Evil 5 is still the only game I use that with, for. And it's just, it was so, I mean, again, like that other shit is bad, but the
It's
game
really bad.
is a lot of fun. The co-op, and again, playing solo also sucks. Like
Yeah,
you have to just kind of give your co-op partner whatever guns you don't want to use and make sure they don't take any ammo from the guns that that you want to use, because they'll just chew through all your ammo. But like I just stuck Sheva with all the submachine guns and gave her all the submachine gun ammo, and that's how I handled that. But
How you do that?
it's got a lot of cool, like you were saying, the unlocks, like the fact that this is, I think this is the
Look at this
first
guy's
Resident Evil
eyes.
game.
Hold up. I just want to point out this dude's eyes are really good. Anyways, but you can see even in this early part, right, where you're walking through this shanty town and these guys are like beating up this carpet, and it's just like, look at these scary black men being scary because they're black, and it's just it really sucks. But yeah, playing this game co-op I had a blast. I honestly think this might be my most played Resident Evil game, in terms of both complete playthroughs and just sheer hours played, because of how much time I spent
This
dinking
was
around
the
in
first
the mercenaries mode with people.
This was the first 360 game I got all 1,000 achievement points.
Also, do you guys remember that awful multiplayer versus mode that they put into this? That was DLC. It was really bad.
I think I only played it like
It
once
was-
or twice.
It was
on
really bad.
360.
We had one night where we all got together. It was like
Yeah.
$5, I think.
Well, I got all the DLC, because the DLC where you play as Chris and Jill going to back to the Spencer Mansion or whatever to try and find Spencer.
Oh right,
and, like,
yeah, I forgot about that
that,
one.
that stuff was that was fun.
Also, I like.
Yeah, it was all right.
There's some funny things with Meathead Chris, but this is also where all the character designs.
It's where he punches the boulder.
It's where he punches the boulder, which is an incredible moment in video game history. But
that boulder punching asshole.
This is this is a proper continuation of Resident Evil 4 being the bloated action film. This is also now like Chris is a giant muscular guy, and all the women have to have cleavage, and it's just like a lot of other kind of bad tropes that I really enjoy from action movies. Yeah. So this game is really hard for me to rank because of how much I enjoy playing it, but how much I dislike all the stuff around the edges and
I think as a whole experience, because if I was ranking it just as a co-op experience, I'd probably put it where you're like sort of hovering it right now.
Well, so if it wasn't racist and you could play it co-op, it would probably go below the remake and above regular Resident Evil. But I can't put it there because of the bullshit. So it either has to go like in between like Code Veronica and Nemesis, or below Nemesis maybe. I don't know. It's hard because
I would say, well, I was going to say between RE1 and Code Veronica was where I would probably put it. But
I think it'll slide down further as we
under Code Veronica is also probably fun, because again, like I think of it as a co-op game because I played so much of it co-op, but the times I played it not co-op, I was like, this is fucking sucks. And I think that it has to, like, and again,
but it has better monsters than Code Veronica, right? It's got like the Ouroboros thing, and it has
no Bandersnatches and no fucking plane tyrant.
No plane tyrant, yeah.
So I guess
I'm going to put it under Code Veronica. We'll put the racist one next to the transphobic one in their own little tier here.
These games would be better if they weren't shitty about something different.
Should we put them underneath Resident Evil 3?
No, I don't. Well, I don't feel that way because I don't really like Resident Evil 3. But I mean, I think for societal value, they like honorarily go underneath Resident Evil 3. But as games that I enjoy playing, I enjoy them more than Resident Evil 3. so
All right,
far.
I feel okay with how we're doing here. All right, let's move on.
Can I just say one thing very briefly?
Absolutely.
I played
Please.
You're not wrong that it's a co-op game, but I did play that game solo a few times, like like on harder difficulties and stuff. And what you were saying was like a bad thing. It was fine. Like you're like,
It
oh,
didn't bother
I
you?
just got a gun I didn't like, and I gave it to Sheva because she. And I was like, yeah, I got a gun I didn't
Right.
like, and I just gave it to Sheva, and she used it.
Right, but
It's
I shouldn't
like,
have to. You shouldn't have to deal with that shit, right? Like that's.
I didn't. That's what everybody complains about, like the inventory management. The inventory management. I was like, dude, your inventory is like 4 boxes, and you just like if you're something you don't want. Everybody has a 9x9. You and your
Right, a
partner have a
3x3. You
9.
both have a 3x3.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And it's like, so you
9
just like,
slots,
it's
right.
not that much to manage. You just like, hey, I don't want this swap.
Oh, I
Done.
started saying. I'm sorry. I don't want to go back or anything, but I do want to say I briefly started saying it, and then I lost the thread, and we started talking about something else. But inventory Tetris in RE4 is a plus to that game as well.
Yeah.
Inventory Tetris is like it's like raking a Zen garden. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
You can. We haven't gone over the cliff with Resident Evil 5, but we're peering
We're-
over the
we're
precipice,
peering-
right?
Yeah.
We're getting closer and closer. So after
You're
Resident Evil
hearing
Don't worry,
5,
we're gonna go over it
The
very
yawning
soon.
maw of madness.
so after Resident Evil 5, there's I think the Mercenaries 3D came out after
Yeah.
Resident Evil 5, which is a game that I
Yeah.
don't think Joe or I had listed as games that we played.
I
played a
actually
ton
kind of
it.
forgot that it existed. I played a little bit of it, but I hated that. Let's see. I played a demo of it at PAX because I was super stoked on the 3DS, right? So remember that I think it was the first year we went to PAX, right? They had demo units of the 3DS before it came out. We went to PAX the first time, I
Mhm.
think. I went the first time, I should say. My first time. And I played it, and you couldn't invert the look, which makes the game borderline unplayable to me. We talked about this last. Like I'm so locked into inverted look that it fucks with me to play without it. And then when it came out with the thing where like you can't delete your save, which means if you buy a used copy,
It's just
you
always
can't
there.
start over. It's
Yeah.
just always, and so I never really dug deeper into it. But I mean, it's right. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just like more mercenaries, and it's pretty fun, right? Like,
Except
What
it's
else
on
do you need?
DS, so
To me, here's the thing I neglected to mention about Resident Evil, which is Resident Evil campaigns are just like the thing you do to unlock mercenaries. So like, so with the fact they were like, oh, people are like, it's just mercenaries mode. This is dumb. I was like, it's just mercenaries mode. This is fucking great. Like, yeah.
okay.
There's like different.
So you don't
little,
like any of the ones until 4, basically.
No, that's not true. I like Resident
3
Evil.
had a mercenaries mode. 3 had a 3
Yeah,
had
and
a-
also
that's
that's
true,
true.
kind of.
And
Yeah.
2, the DualShock version of 2 had extreme
Something,
battle.
that's right. Extreme
Yeah,
battle
it's
mode, yeah.
essentially mercenaries.
Which is
It knows what it is.
Okay. All right. We need to move along here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we missed that one. We also missed there was a game called Resident Evil Chronicles that came out on the Game Boy Color, which is like a weird
Gaiden.
Yeah, Gaiden.
Oh yeah.
Which is like a weird. We did a stream with that, but I did not play enough of that. We played it for like 20 minutes. I didn't feel comfortable enough to comment.
That's
so.
one where I feel like that's one where I should.
It's a lot of reading.
Shot, but I've heard really pretty not good things.
Yeah.
I feel it's undergone something of a critical reevaluation lately
boy.
amongst the fandom, where some people are like, no, it's actually like pretty good if you accept it for what it is.
Well, people, fans will convince themselves that anything is good. So
yeah, that's
Garbage tastes delicious.
exactly. Yeah, when you've played all the other games a million times, and all you're left with is like a mediocre adventure game on the Game Boy Color, like. I don't know. Maybe it's great. Maybe it gets really good in it, but I wasn't feeling it. But anyways, didn't play enough of it to feel comfortable commenting on it. But so anyway, next, a few years later, we get this game called Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, which is a game that I had not played until I bought it on Steam. And
last week.
Literally like a week ago, because they had all the Resident Evil games on sale. And
so
this
I
is
still confuse this one and Umbrella Corps.
Right. So this is the first one.
Straight. I do not know which one is which.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Same.
One of them was by the SOCOM team,
so
wasn't it?
This game
which
had
one was the SOCOM people made it?
This one.
This one?
It's either this one or the other one. I don't know. You'd have to look that
yes,
up. It doesn't matter. I played a couple hours of this. I streamed it for an hour. I played another hour. So one of the things that's wrong with the PC version of this game, is that it has Games for Windows Live integration in it still, and nobody gives a shit enough about it to mod it out. So in order to play this game, you have to like go to some seedy websites and download like a deprecated version of GFW Live and install that and hope that it's not a virus. Because otherwise it literally won't boot without that integration.
Slant 6 developed this one. This is the one that was from the people who made SOCOM.
And so there's actually a handful of games that are like that. There's some good games that are like that. Resident Evil 5 is actually one of those games, but people have that game is loved enough that you can download mods for it that will take all that stuff out so you can just play it, which is how I got footage of that. But this game nobody gives a shit about because it fucking sucks. What it's meant to be is it's meant to be like it's like a 4-player like Resident Evil third person, well, kind of SOCOM, but I would say almost more like a Left 4 Dead kind of style thing, where you have like 4 characters, and then like you go in and you do these missions, and then you get points and you can unlock more characters, you can upgrade weapons, you can buy new weapons to take in, you can like swap your loadout. Like it's not a bad idea for a game. It's just, it plays like shit. Like it plays like shit. It's awful to play and it feels bad. And it's like not a good third person shooter. And given that it came out in 2012, like the level design is really not very good either from the 4 or 5 levels that I played anyways. It was a game like in 2012, which if it had received anything approaching decent reviews, I probably would have tried to talk some of you chuckleheads into playing it with me, but
it has a 48 on Metacritic.
It was pretty much universally reviled, and playing it now is like, oh yeah, I see why people didn't like this game because I don't like it either.
Gamer gave it a 46. GameSpot gave it a 4 out of 10.
I feel like we played like a demo or something.
I think we probably
maybe that's the other one.
No, it would have been this one because this would have been the Xbox 360 one. That's why it has
we probably did
GFW
that.
Live. Yeah, fucking Capcom needs to fucking fix their shit if they're gonna sell these games on Steam. They need to figure out some workaround. Like Dark Souls had GFW Live, but now there's a remastered version of it, and so that's what you would buy. But like Fallout 3 had that, and that also relies on mods for you to play it. It sucks. It's really stupid. Because like the PC versions of those games like look a lot better, but the Xbox or PlayStation versions you could just sit down and play without having to fuck around with them, which is
they fucking work.
Yeah, it's too bad about the GFW Live thing. But anyway, I'm gonna put this is going on the bottom with the Gun Survivor games.
Going below them or above them?
Let's talk about Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil 6, you and I played many hours of. I struggled to get a fucking
game. This game never ends.
The best thing about it is the logo is a man blowing a giraffe. And
the lady. No, it is a guy. Yeah,
it's a lady or a guy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's a person. Yeah. It's a person. It's a human blowing a giraffe.
Humanoid blowing a giraffe.
Yeah, blowing a giraffe.
The giraffe is having a great time. But no one else is. Only the giraffe. The giraffe is the only one having fun.
This game sucks. This game is worse than Resident Evil 0, I think. Well, maybe not. It's in that strata. I mean, we laughed a lot doing like wrestling moves to zombies.
Yeah,
I remember.
I was gonna say, like, can we talk about like the game's super complicated control scheme that tries to like fit too much into there?
Oh my god! And the way you have to do herbs, where you have to like take the herb and process it into a Tic Tac, and then put it in your Tic Tac dispenser, and then use a button during gameplay to eat the Tic Tac to get health back, rather than just like using a green herb the way you fucking normally would in any other Resident Evil game.
This is like without a doubt, though, the funniest video game of all time. I think I stand by that like pretty heavily. Like I don't even know what number 2 is. Like
Resident Evil.
Because one of the quick time, so there, and it's obviously it's all an intentional comedy, but it's there because there's a moment where at one point Leon in his scenario And we can talk about how 3 different teams made the game, and you can totally tell because
Right. Well, that was advertised as a like positive when the game came out, though,
Right.
right?
That was what they were
It's
trying
like
to push it.
one
And
is
it's
the
like,
action one, and one is the horror one, and one is the like
yeah, and it
classic
was obvious
Resident
that was a
Evil
bad
one.
idea. And then people played it. They're like, "Wow, this fucking sucks," and everyone was like,
the
"Yeah, who
fucking
could have
interface, it
foreseen
was
this?"
like going from one HUD, the
Yeah.
fucking HUD changes
Yeah.
from chapter to
Yeah.
chapter. It's
Yeah.
maddening. And also, we had, like, when Eric and I were playing it, we had to look up a guide that said, like, if you want to understand the story, here's the order you should play the
Yeah,
chapters
we shouldn't have
in.
done that. I feel like
So it
that.
makes
I feel like
sense.
that was a mistake. I feel like that made the game worse, actually.
I don't know. I mean, could it have? It was pretty bad in any form. I think it would have been pretty
But
bad.
so the thing that I really hate about this game is that this is
From all
They
of
did
it.
Jill dirty. They did Jill completely
Yeah.
dirty. She's just not even in this fucking game.
this is like the Judge Dredd of Resident Evil. This is like
I was
the
gonna say,
super
this is the Cutthroat
bloated-
Island.
Yeah,
This is the Cutthroat
that's a
Island
great
of
comparison.
Resident Evil games.
Or like
It's
the mid Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever. It's
Right.
just
It's
like
this
it's so
huge-
bloated.
It cost
and-
a fucking fortune, and it sold really well,
It
but it
did.
was so fucking bloated that even though it
Yeah.
sold really well, it didn't make its money back.
Yeah.
Which is why they went way back to the drawing board for 7, because this fucking thing cost whatever $200 million and didn't sell enough to
Really?
make the
Because
fucking
that's
money
because
back.
it's not one. Instead of making one good game, they made 3 like
Three shitty
mediocre
ones.
ones. Yeah, but I'm a big HUD guy, and I
Yes.
hate
I've always
and
said
like
that
all the
about
HUD
you.
and stuff in this game sucks ass. The inventory sucks. It's really hard to like move stuff around. It's like this weird like 2-tiered system where you can like shovel things back and forth. Your phone is always on screen, so you can always see what your inventory is once you're actually playing
Yeah.
it. And
Well,
it's
it
just
also-
and also there's all these like they're always wresting camera control away from you to show you stuff.
Oh my god.
Because the level design is so bad that you wouldn't otherwise know where you were supposed to go or what you were supposed to look at, right? Like I love those. There's like these Portal and Half-Life like developer commentary things where the people at Valve are talking about like, we want you to look here, so we designed this piece of art to like draw your focus from this part of the level to this thing that you're supposed to look at. And like they talk about how much time and effort they put into like making like games, like the game feel like connected and whole. And this game is like a fucking arcade game. It's just like they just like put pop-ups all over the place, and there's like constantly like, and there's quick time events all the time. Like everything's a fucking quick time event.
Yeah.
And it fucking sucks.
Yeah,
it's
it
just-
fucking sucks. This
So
game
that's
fucking
what I was talking about with the unintentional comedy. Is there's a part in Leon's scenario, and don't ask me for the context, I do not remember. But they have to fix a bus so they
Mhm.
can escape
Oh
on
god,
the
yeah.
bus.
Yeah.
And so you, as far as I know, you cannot fail that QuickTime event. Because I left it idling for a long time. A long time.
I think
like minutes.
I think you sent us a
And-
video of this.
Oh,
Yeah, that sounds
I
right.
did.
Yeah.
And he has his arm, he's reaching up into like the undercarriage, what do you call that, like the guts of the bus,
Yeah.
and
The wiring
he's
harness.
just like wiggling his arm around, and you just hear like a socket wrench sound effect that like loops, and
Yeah.
he just does it. He just keeps doing the same like crank motion over and over again.
They spent
It's
$200
like-
million on the game, and they still fucking ran out of money.
Yeah, it's like a 5-second animation loop with like a 2.5-second like socket wrench loop,
Yeah.
and it just goes forever.
And then look at the scene. Like this is like a fucking Crash Bandicoot level where you're running away from the thing into
or
the screen,
Uncharted,
and it's Uncharted is a great comparison. They're just trying to cram every video game thing imaginable in, and it's just not.
Well, also it's
There is
just,
some
like,
fun
the-
to be had,
the-
like Joe said, like because they put so many different like wrestling moves, and everybody has different, like that stuff is kind of fun. And Leon has this like crazy slide maneuver he can do, but it's just it's too much, and it's not that
It's-
good.
It's
I
a
remember playing the mercenaries
portrait
mode and just
access.
doing stuff where I was like just trying to take like full advantage of all the weird controls they put in the game. So it's like sliding around and then like
Yeah.
from the slide jumping and then like sliding backwards and shit. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like,
I think
why is this like this?
I think this game is a
Like,
perfect sort of counterpart to. I think Alex, maybe you'll be the only one who actually understands what I'm saying when I say
okay.
this, but like this is like the perfect counterpart to Devil May Cry 5. Like
Mhm.
playing as Dante in Devil May Cry 5, it takes a while before you can play as Dante, but once you can play as
Oh
him, it's
yeah.
this super technical but really satisfying. Like it feels like kind of whatever you try kind of works. Like you can switch
Yeah.
weapons on the fly, you can switch styles on the fly, and you can switch both of those things at the same time and go from, you can go from using the fucking ice nunchucks and then in the like attack stance and then switch to the royal guard or trickster stance and use the fucking hat. And if you're fighting the right kind of enemies, like it works and it feels really good and it feels really technical, but like it does require a level of mastery, which is why it's kind of good that they make you play as Nero for a while. It's a little easier to play as Nero, and then by the time you've played the game for like 8 hours and you can play as Dante, you've played enough of it that like you are ready to do all this super technical shit with Dante, and it feels really fucking good. This game feels like it's trying to do that, but they just could not stick the landing at all. So instead of feeling technical and good and satisfying, it just feels complicated and annoying.
I feel like the analogy that like I think it's more like when you played Metal Gear Solid like 4 like for
Mhm.
the first time and you're like just looking at the way the controls are mapped and you're trying to figure out all the things you can do and it's like look you can like crawl and then like flip over on your belly and blah 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 and do that
Yeah.
and then like wiggle backwards. It's like I don't really need that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like why do I have this? Like yeah, I guess it's neat that I can do that, but like do I
No.
need it? It's like no, you can just crawl and you'll be fine. It's like oh, same thing. It's like
Right.
you could do this cool slide thing and shoot while you're sliding, and then like get up and then like backflip and punch a guy. And it's like
Right.
I
But they
kind of just
they
need to
they
shoot him in the
never
head
they
and like
never give you
suplex
a
him
compelling reason to do any of that
to
stuff.
do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all just there,
Yeah.
and it's like okay, sure,
I
dude.
don't. There's some, like I said, there's people that like this game, but there's people that like
What's
anything.
wrong with
I don't know.
them? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know.
Oh,
It's
there's
just not for
tons
me.
of
We don't need to dump on it
there's
anymore. I think we should move
Can I
along.
do one last brief dump?
Sure.
Please, please, sir, please. There's a lot of press left bumper, press right bumper rope climbing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
the
Yeah, like I
worst quick
said,
time event of all
that's
time.
Hear
that
me?
like that interface QuickTime stuff that I drives me fucking bananas.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Sorry, I just that shit every time it came up, I was cracking up. I was like, dude, come on, guys. Anyway. Oh, Joe left. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Joe's back.
Oh, here we go. There we go. I don't
He's
know what the
back.
fuck.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's good. I was gonna say you froze, but you actually just got disconnected from Discord for a second.
I dropped the stream for a second too, and I was like, oh no.
Okay. All right. Well,
happened.
so yeah, that's Resident Evil 6. It's
It
it's not
sucks.
good.
It
Just
sucks.
leave
I
it
would
there.
I
don't
would
like it.
say I would say
I put it between 0 and Outbreak because it's like Outbreak is
Yeah.
theoretically interesting, but doesn't really. It's like kind of almost not playable single player.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right.
I don't know.
You do kill the president in this game, and then so you can
That's
call
true.
it President
President
Evil.
Evil. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Also, like, I don't want to belabor the point, I guess, on this one, but I will just say this is the point where everybody becomes like Leon was so much fun in 4, and he's just like a dour asshole in this one.
Yeah. Everybody's just a
and
jerk. None of the writing is fun.
The lore has gotten completely out of control, where there's just like zombies are attacking giant cities across the world, and it's just like what?
This was
what?
this
That-
was the
huh?
game where it was obvious that it was time to push the reset button. That the
Yeah.
the lore,
Even though they
like the
didn't
thing,
really-
it
I
all
was
just.
gonna say, don't worry, they didn't.
Well, I mean, they do and they don't, right? Or at least they
just-
they
right,
don't
right.
they don't bother
yeah.
showing you like
That
all the
stuff
stuff that's
anymore.
happening in 6 was kind of going on in the background of 4 and 3 and 4 and 5 and all the other games, but they didn't like that was like subtext. It was like background noise.
Right.
And in 6 they tried to show you all that stuff and it didn't work because it's too complicated. But anyway, so a couple years later, we get for the 3DS and eventually Steam Resident Evil Revelations.
Everything Switch,
you're
and that's on like
spicy.
everything now.
I
Yeah,
think it is,
I have
yeah.
a I have a Revelitons.
Me
copy
too.
of
Did you
this
see
game.
that eyeball?
It's a pretty good eyeball.
It's a pretty
It is a
fucking
good
good
eyeball.
Pretty good eyeball.
Check that eyeball
So
out.
this game, I wanted to like this game a lot. Like I was saying to you last night, like I bought a fucking Circle Pad Pro for my 3DS, and I played a lot of it on a vacation. I was in Arizona with my family. My parents rented this house in Arizona, and I was there. And that was the same one where we did the Haywire action cast. I was in that same house when we did that action cast. I recorded it from that vacation house that my parents rented, and I was trying to get muddled through this game, and eventually got to the point where the scanning mechanic just fucking wore me down, and I got sick of it. And when I played I actually recently started replaying it on Steam, and now you can switch to the scanner by just hitting like the L2 button or something, or L1 just like pulls out the scanner instead of having to actually like swap it as your weapon, which is in the 3DS version. That's basically what you have to do, to put your gun away and take out the thing. And now in the console version, in the PC version, you can just hit a button and it pulls it out automatically without having to like
That's
switch
definitely
weapons.
better.
And that makes it a lot better, but it's still actually really kind of fucking annoying that I have to scan like baskets of fruit in a ship kitchen to like look for ammo. Like it should just be there. I don't like that, and that kind of dragged it down for me, because otherwise I actually quite liked a lot of the stuff that was going on. Playing as Chris and Jill again is cool, and
I think the fun thing about it is that it's just like it's like a B grade third person action game set in the Resident Evil universe, and that's good enough.
and also it felt like it was a handheld entry that wasn't just like a shitty port or an attempted, like we didn't talk about the game, the unreleased Game Boy Color,
it's unreleased.
the unreleased GBA port of 2, which actually there was an unreleased GBA port of 1 that there's not a dump of it online though, so you can just, there's 3 seconds of footage and a bunch of screenshots from the same people though, from Raylight Studios, which it wasn't really
we lost Joe again.
I can still hear you.
Okay, there he is. You just froze.
I say Raylight just was pitching basically on those, and that wasn't ever like, those weren't ever a thing that was happening. But this feels like a game. This was like a portable game where they're like, we're gonna do something, and it's gonna be, which I guess Gaiden was kind of that, but this feels like a better, more fully realized version of that. And for that, I guess I give it points, but like, it's not that good. It's fine.
It's fine.
I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. The scanning thing never bothered me too much, but I know I'm in the minority on that.
The version I played was like you said, Joe, the one where you could just bring up the scanner, and it was like more like doing the scanning like Metroid Prime or something.
Yeah, I didn't like the scanning of Metroid Prime either.
Not as interesting though, because at least in Prime you were like in an alien environment.
Right, you're trying to learn details of the alien planet.
I don't know. Like I said, I had a pretty decent time with this. But I don't. You want to put it above 0, but below the Umbrella Chronicle games?
I think I would actually put it above the Umbrella, especially if we're talking about the Steam version. I would think I'd put it above the Chronicles games and below 3? Nemesis, probably.
I think that makes sense to me. That makes sense. All right. So the next one is Revelations 2.
I've only played what we played of it last night together.
This game seems like a pretty good. So this game replaces the scanning thing with a co-op partner who does the scanning kind of
with a flashlight
for you,
which makes more sense that she shines a flashlight on things in this dank, dark.
Right, and it's like, oh, hey, there's some ammo, and I think that mechanic kind of works. I think that it's kind of a neat co-op thing. I think that the biggest problem with it is that it doesn't have online co-op, so the only way to do it is via screen share thing, which is kind of a bummer.
Right, which forces that. Well, you can watch the stream from last night, or I think you're going to show probably. Is this just recorded from last night?
No, I played some single player.
Okay, so we did the Steam to co-op wherever, or whatever the fuck it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but like, yeah. So we were playing. We're both watching a screen. We're both looking at a split screen co-op that's being streamed from my computer to Eric's computer is how we played it, which is not ideal. That said, it's better than not being able to play it online at all, I guess.
Yeah.
I I think it's interesting. I think I'll play more of it.
We should play more of it. I would like to play
with
more
you,
of it.
and I also think I'll probably play more of it solo as well. But I do know that you finally get to play as Barry.
Yep.
For the first time since the Game Boy Color Resident Evil Gaiden. You get some good Barry time. So,
I really like Moira as a character. She says
Yeah,
at one
Barry's
point she
daughter.
says it's worse than a moist barrel of fucks, which is a great line. And then also at one point you hit like a switch and it doesn't work, and she's like, "Fucking technology!" Like, goddamn right, fucking fuck this fucking technology. She's got just like a really dirty mouth in a really fun way.
This was the beginning of the very sweary protagonists of Resident Evil games, which
Yeah.
I don't love the overly swearing. Like, we'll talk about that when we get
Also,
to some of
we get back to like more like normal looking character designs, which I like.
Yes,
We don't have the beefy boys or the really tight butt shots with the like.
Yeah, even Revelations 1, like Jill's ass is like,
Yeah.
a little. It's a bit much.
Yeah. This we get Claire, who's just like pretty laid back and normal, and Moira, and the evil lady in this game I think has like a mountain of cleavage. But,
yeah, probably.
But anyway, I'm gonna put this just next to the regular Revelations.
I would put,
Or do you
based
wanna
on
put
what
it
I put so
above?
far, I would put it above the first
Okay.
Revelations.
All right, I'm fine with that. But I think we should play.
I
some
might
more of
even.
that.
I think I need to play more
Above
of it. But I think
Nemesis?
when all said and done, I might put it above
All right.
Nemesis.
I'm
When
not
all said
comfortable
and done,
doing
I
that
can't-
because we haven't played enough.
Yeah,
of
we
it.
haven't played enough.
Based on what I've played, Nemesis is still maybe a better. Anyway, all right, let's move on to 2016's game that Joe doesn't know the difference between it and Operation Raccoon City. Umbrella Corps, which I bought this for $3. I played it for an hour.
Did it have a bunch of games for Windows
so
Live?
bad. No, this is after Games for Windows went in the toilet.
Games for Windows dead.
Games for Windows is dead. So this game is actually
Games for Windows
playable.
done
So it has
dead.
that above Umbrella Operation Raccoon City, but it's just, man, this game. So okay, I'm gonna skip the cutscene.
This
and
game
stuff.
has an even worse Metacritic score.
Yeah.
Than
So
Operation Raccoon
I just
City.
look at the fucking perspective on this game. Just
What
look
the
at
fuck?
right. Yeah, exactly. Look at
What if-
why is this a third person game if
This
you're
is
going to
like-
zoom the camera in and make the guy awkwardly hold the gun next to his
I was gonna
ear
say,
in order to
some
aim?
Someone on the
Right.
dev team was like first person, and someone else was like no third person, and they couldn't settle their differences, so they had
They
to
were like
compromise.
2.5 person.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This
Also-
is the second person. This is the
Right.
first second
Second
person.
person video game.
No, that's
You walk
Battletoads.
down the hall and
That's
shot at a zombie.
Battletoads. Battletoads is the first second person boss fight. But yeah, it feels
This is
Yeah,
the
right,
second person.
yeah.
that's
This
right.
game it just feels awful to
Ninja
play.
Turtles in Time also has a second
Yeah.
person.
It looks
boss fight.
awful.
It's awful. It's really awful.
Just-
You guys
wow.
should get it, and we should play through it it's like on sale for $3.
I feel
Um,
like there needs to be some sort of extra life incentive to
Get us to play this. Yeah.
donate money to a children's
I
hospital.
really-
and all. Think
So
about it.
I'm gonna just start doing this now. I'm gonna put
This
this
is
at the
Umbrella
bottom.
Core.
This is Umbrella
Just
Corps.
put it. Just
All
put it.
It's really so it is like Operation Raccoon City. It's intended to be a multiplayer game, and so it has like a lot of meta stuff that you don't really get to experience very much playing it like I did for a couple hours single player. But it feels awful. Like there's like those like piles of flesh, like those will infinitely spawn zombies.
Can I give you a blurb from the best Metacritic critic review
Sure, yeah.
for this game? Umbrella
You're
Corps
saying the highest score.
the highest of the critic scores,
Okay.
not the user,
Yep.
not the user
Yep,
one.
yep.
Umbrella Corps' Metascore suggests that it's one of the worst games of the generation, but if you look past its low budget and bugs, you'll see a fresh, unconventional shooter brimming with brilliant small innovations.
Which are what? Does it list any of those? 'Cause
that's
Well,
blurb.
I played a lot of
if you look
shooters.
past how bad it is, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You just can't see it, man. The small
You look
innovation.
past-
They're
how
so
shitty
they're
it
so small. You need a magnifying glass to see them.
I
Yeah,
have
but once you get that
purchases
magnifying
so that
glass,
if you do an extra life thing, I'm ready to go.
All right.
Because I didn't
Yeah.
want it to go up to full price and have to deal with that.
That's a good point, Kurt. That's
Yeah.
a good point.
That's what it's like.
So
We'll probably do that. So here, $5.
yeah,
Fine.
I mean, so here's the thing. Like I said, like this is very much one of those sort of co-op. It's meant to be played like actually, what this is meant to be is like a asymmetrical multiplayer game where two teams kind of compete to see who can complete. It's almost like Destiny's Gambit mode. Like that's what it's meant to be.
Don't say that.
Where it's like PvE and also PvP, like where the two teams are like
Indirect
doing
PvP.
right, where the two teams are trying to compete to see who can complete the
Competitive
mission
PvE.
faster, which is a really cool idea. And like this did come out, I guess, before Destiny's Gambit mode, so maybe that's
Hey,
what
guess
they
what?
mean.
Both those
Hey, wait a
modes
minute.
suck.
That was the small
You've
innovation.
got,
was-
You've got Dead Space stomping going on.
Yeah, you do have Dead Space stomping, but it happens so fast that it really doesn't feel very good.
And he doesn't go, yeah.
Yeah, it's really something. Like I said, it's bad enough that I think that we should play it sometime. Anyway, all right, we should move on here. We're getting there. We're almost at the end. There's not much left.
Should I pay the extra $1.25 to get the deluxe edition of Umbrella Corps?
Yeah, you'd probably not.
Need that DLC, dude.
We need that DLC. Yeah.
Need
All
those
right,
maps.
let's move on. Let's talk about Resident Evil. Let's talk about Resident Evil 7.
Resident Evil
A series conceived as a first-person thing with weird first-person shoehorned into some entries, bad first-person games like Gun Survivor and like weird first-person Wii shooters, and then they're like, Resident Evil 6 was too expensive and people hated it, and let's try something different. And we got the demo for Resident Evil 7 comes out, and it's this crazy.
We didn't even know the first demo. We didn't even know that's what it was.
Right.
The first one was the kitchen table or whatever it was called for PS4, and it was a stealth Resident Evil 7 demo. People didn't know that's what it was at first.
And so it's like some people exploring a haunted house and making a video cassette, and then the game comes out, and I didn't buy it when it first came out because I was pretty much over Resident Evil.
Burned so hard by Resident Evil 6.
Yeah. And I mean, not just 6, but all of the bad spin-offs. And, like I said, I had a lot of fun with 5, but
They got nothing anymore. Why should I buy
but they had gone beyond what I could get enjoyment-wise out of that. And then this game comes out, and it's like, actually, we're going to like reinvent what Resident Evil is, like, and it's going to be first person.
A new hand trauma element.
Remember that second word in the descriptor for this kind of series?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the ones weren't even survival. Like for me, so people define survival horror differently, but for me, I feel like limited resources. Like I've seen people be like, "Oh, like 3D Monster Maze on like the old whatever the first like Amiga computer or whatever was, like the Spectrum, the pre ZX Spectrum, one before that, like." That's the first survival horror game, and it's like, no, that's just a game where you get chased by a monster and it kills you. Technically, yes, you either survive or you don't, but that's not a survival.
Mario survival
every
horror
video game,
right? Yeah. There's no resource management in that game, and I think that's part of what makes it that. And a lot of the later game, I mean, even from Resident Evil 4 on, like, yes, technically you have limited resources.
There isn't though,
but
really.
Not really.
You can shoot everything and still have enough ammo to finish the game.
Right, because the enemies will just drop more ammo in those games, and this one is back to like, no, if you don't manage your resources, you will be fucked.
Right, and even if it isn't like that, it feels that way, and that's the important thing.
Yeah,
but this game is the first third of this game is the scariest thing. This is the scariest video game that I've ever played. The only thing that comes close is Silent Hill 2. Those two are like alone. They're having like the Metal Gear Solid Snake versus Liquid Snake fight on top of the Metal Gear for the scariest thing in video games. It's such an incredible. This whole setup, right, where it's like, instead of being this giant muscle bound dude or this this cop or this special forces guy, you're just a dude trying to find his wife, and you don't know what's going on, and she's been missing for 3 years, and you get this mysterious video, and you go to the fucking
creepiest fucking mansion ever.
What's you're in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're basically in the Texas Chainsaw Texas
Right.
Chainsaw 2, really.
And then,
You know?
right, and then, yeah, it evolves into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 house, but
And this is also, we were talking about Until Dawn not that long ago, where it was like they kind of threw a lot of different sort of horror subgenres and homages in, and it kind of, for me, Until Dawn didn't quite work because there was a little bit too much of that. This
Yeah.
game, I think, kind of finds a good balance of like there's a section that's like Saw, and there's a section that's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and there's a section that's like almost like a tradition. The molded aren't zombies really, but they kind of are. I mean, they're dead people who are reanimated by a goopy,
right.
gross mold.
They're
So
mold instead of
they
a
kind of are
virus, but
zombies, right?
yeah.
Um, and so there's a lot of that stuff, and it did work for this game. Worked for me on such a fucking fantastic level, and also the thing that I really loved about this game, as someone who is an old school Resident Evil fan and someone who goes back and plays some of those old original games, is like the Madhouse difficulty, where now saves are a consumable item again,
Mm-hmm.
and now there is no quick reloads. You have to go back to where you last used a cassette to save, and if you don't, that's it. Like and that stuff, and
This is like
it went
Street
back
Fighter.
to every
It's like Street Fighter. You have to block.
right. Yeah, and yeah, right. And that was the one thing that I really loved about Madhouse too, is like I feel like I didn't block really hardly anything at all in the normal difficulty, and then you play on Madhouse and you're like, oh no, you better remember that block button is there, or you are going to be fucking killed.
Yeah.
And that playing it that way just felt to me like they really got what was appealing about the original games. And I like that the easier difficulties, there's an easy and a normal for people who are not used to that stuff, but for someone who does like that limited resources for saving and kind of feeling like every encounter. I think what's great about the original Resident Evil and this game is that every single enemy encounter, one zombie, one molded, can kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And that adds that's a different kind of tension than in something like Resident Evil 4, where like Leon is Rambo, basically.
Right.
Leon is Arnold Schwarzenegger. You, even without bonus weapons, you can pretty much fuck up everybody and everything
Or
in that game.
the hero is basically committing genocide.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You're killing the population of an entire Iberian, county. Like, and this game is like
Or a
again,
fake African city.
right, yeah. And in this game, forget about boss encounters. Every normal, regular ass enemy can be the fucking end of you, especially on the harder difficulty.
Hey,
And
can we talk about the boss encounters though?
yeah.
Can we talk
Jack,
about
the
can we talk
chainsaw
about
duel
can we
with
talk
Jack.
can we talk about our boy Jack and how
Yeah.
him switching the perspective to first person and having him stomping around and following you and talking to you and taunting you is definitely like you can feel that in your blood, especially the first time you play it. It's just
Early
it's
going when he's
so
stalking.
intense and
Yeah. And all the times he like blows his own brains out and shit, and you're just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck with this dude? And then he
Right.
comes back, of course, again and again and again. And also, A plus kill, which I'm pretty sure is a reference to the classic, quote unquote, classic horror movie, Necromantic, where Jack shoves a shovel through a dude's
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Which, like, that's not how that works, right? Like, you just get knocked over by the shovel.
He's
It
really
wouldn't go
strong
through your
though.
skull.
He's been sharpening that shovel, waiting for his moment.
And then when you have to like dig your arm into that cop's gut
Yeah.
to pull out a key later.
There's so many times in this game where it's like, where you go, is this really fucking happening right now? Like even right, like that first fight with Jack in the car where it's like you find the car key and you're like, am I going to get in this car? And then you're like driving the car and trying to run him over. If you miss, he like reaches in and grabs it, or he starts driving the car.
He
There's all these
drives it.
different permutations that can happen. And then, then there's the chainsaw duel with him. And then there's all that's like the first third of the game. And then the second third of the game is like the Marguerite stuff, which is like creepy bug shit. And her boss fight is really fantastic.
You have to shoot her in her bug vagina.
Right.
That's her weak point.
But
is her
she's
bug
crawling
vagina.
around in that creepy greenhouse. And
Yes.
and then you get the trap section where you're going against the oldest
Lucas.
son. Yeah. And then
He gets away, and
he gets
to face
away.
him
And then
later.
there's the back half of the game where it kind of falls apart a little bit. We're on the
That section
ship.
isn't very long though. Well, the ship
Yeah.
sucks. The ship is the worst part.
There's the cave and the ship and the end of the game,
The
and
mine, but the mines and then the little
it's
lab
short. It
section
is
is so short that it's like whatever.
Um,
The ship sucks though. But the ship sucking illustrates how good the rest of this game is, because
Right.
I would still say that this game is, I mean, this is one of my favorite of this. This is top 5 for me. Like, this is going towards the top. Where you have it positioned right now is the strata it belongs in. And also the fact that, I mean, we were just talking about how badly they fucked up, like, weighing everything down with all this shitty lore in 6. And, like, the fact that there's a couple of, like, you can see there are articles that, if you're looking for them and if you're familiar with the series, reference Raccoon City. One of the articles is written by one of the characters in the Outbreak games, that you find in like on the coffee table at the Baker House.
Yeah.
But it really is not in any meaningful way connected to the rest of the games until the very, like, the ending. The ending movie is, you get a little thing that's like, oh yeah, this is like, this is connected. But before that, I was like, I just assumed it was a soft reboot. I mean, it is a soft reboot, but I assumed it was like starting over. Like, most of that shit didn't even happen. And I actually still don't really know to what level that's accurate.
Right.
Like, there are references to character in
But
7 and 8.
it doesn't
There are
seem
references
it
to
doesn't seem
things,
like
but
the stuff in the remakes of 2 and 3 directly connect to, like, it's like alternate universe where similar things happened with similar people, but it's not the same group of people.
Right.
But yeah, and I mean, the moment of revelation where you figure it all out, where you loop back around and you find that photograph, and like, I thought that was really, there's just so much brilliant stuff, and the way that they integrate the demo into the game, right, and make that the solution to a puzzle, which we're watching right now, is really incredible. And just like this whole, there's so much stuff in this game that I really love. It's a really, really brilliant reinvention of the series. And
there's also a couple of pieces of DLC that were allowed. There's one called Bedroom where it's like Misery.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Marguerite is the Kathy Bates character in Misery, and you're Paul, and you're stuck in this bed, and you have to figure out a way to escape. And then, of course, when you escape, you don't actually escape. But you know, that whole thing is like such a different take on. There's no combat in it. It's like just pure Resident Evil puzzle, basically.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. And
also, the VR mode on PlayStation VR is,
yeah, you
really
played
good.
through a lot of the game in VR.
I did. It's really, it's
Fuck
super
that.
intense. Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, fuck
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
fuck
fuck.
that.
Yeah, fuck
Yeah.
that. Yes, fuck that. Even if it's not the first time you played the game, fuck that.
Yeah, you let me play a little bit of it in
claustrophobic
VR when
as
you
fuck.
brought your PSVR to my house one time, and I
Yeah.
played some of it. And I think it was for WrestleMania you brought it, and I
But-
just played some of it. And it was, and even though I knew the game backwards and frontwards by then because I'd gotten the platinum trophy and all this shit,
Right.
like, it is still kind of unsettling to play that way.
It's so
for sure.
gross. Like, the new engine is like the
The
grossest.
Moon engine, yeah.
Right. It's like, does really gross shit, gross food. Like,
Yeah.
does good looking food and gross food better than any other video game engine.
I'm gonna say this one should go for me.
I moved it. I have it at the top. That's where I want to
don't-
put it.
That's
I
not
don't
weird.
think
It's
I
not
can
Resident Evil
go.
4.
I don't think I would put it. Oh boy, I would. It's in that, like, again, if we were doing just like a tier list, it's in the same tier as those. But I think I would put
It has to go at the top.
I think I would put it behind Resident Evil 2 and maybe Resident Evil 4, but it's
I think it has to go at the top.
in that strata.
I want
And
to put
it's
it
going
at
to
the
be
top.
real hard for me to decide.
It gets
where
hard. This
next one
section,
goes.
this next section is really, really fucking rough, because
Yeah.
they
The
fucking,
series is basically in a renaissance that it hasn't really ever been in.
Yeah.
I would say. So, yeah.
but yeah. Anyways, this game is quite brilliant, I think.
It's like, if anybody's watching this and hasn't played this fucking game, like run, do not walk
Yeah.
to play Resident Evil 7.
I haven't
Also, I
played
like
it,
the
but
very
that's because
clever.
I'm a scared baby.
Alex, you should
I
I
play it.
am. I'm a
should
scared
play it.
baby.
You
No,
should
I'd
play it
be
in
too
VR.
scared.
It's great. You'll love it.
I would definitely be
right.
too scared. Fuck you.
This game.
I mean, if you're
think-
gonna be scared, just go all in.
Also, I don't like stuff in VR. It gives me a headache. It makes my tum hurt.
That's understandable. That's
Yeah.
All right.
I started getting sick after a little while playing this in VR. Like I started getting
Yeah.
motion sick shit and sweating. Like I was sweating
You were
profusely.
sweating very hard when you were
Yeah.
playing it in VR. But anyway, there's just so much.
Because of the terror, I
Texas
think.
Chainsaw Massacre 2 stuff just gets my motor revving.
I think
You
my
know
favorite
that.
thing is that not only does the mold let Lucas grow his arm back, it also grows the arm of his hoodie back, which is nice. It's very convenient.
So anyway, all right, let's move on. We'll figure out the top here at the end. But I want it here, you want it down here someplace.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next game, which is 2019's remake of Resident Evil 2.
What Alex
Oh,
helpfully
yeah.
dubbed RE2K19, which is the name I've ever since he suggested that. That's what I've gone with.
That's
I
what
think
it's
that was
called.
yeah, absolutely.
Legally, that's what they did in like
Look
a
at
court
hey,
filing.
check out this
Yeah.
egg sandwich. I'm putting it at this game goes at the top.
Speaking of-
Did you see that fucking egg sandwich?
Speaking
This
of
is the
the
best
sandwich,
one.
good.
It's for the truck driver's sandwich. It goes to the top.
Yeah.
The Egg McMuffin fucking puts it at the top. This might be at the top for me. Both versions of 2 are so good. This game, I didn't know what to expect, and since it had been announced like years before, and we didn't see anything until less than a year before it came out. They finally showed it at E3 2018 in the summer of 2018, and it came out in January of 2019. 21 years, almost to the day, 21 years after the original 2. And this game fucking just like ripped every expectation I had for it. Similar to 7, right? Like every expectation I had was just absolutely blown away by this game. I did not believe that they would make a remake of a game that I already hold in extremely high esteem would be as good or maybe better than that game. And going back to what I said about the Resident Evil remake from 2002,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the best video game remakes of all time. Like the way, like now it feels like people will class things as a remake when they're really not. They're just sort of like HD upreses
Right.
of games from the PlayStation 2 era. You know, like I mean, I know you love Katamari Damacy, but the version that's on Switch and stuff is
Yeah,
just
it's not a
it's just
remake.
upres. It's not a remake.
remaster.
It's yeah. This is a ground up fucking remake of Resident Evil 2, and it nails every fucking part of it. It makes Chief Irons creepier. It makes Mr. X scarier. It makes
Dear God, Mr. X.
Yeah, like
Holy
Mike
shit.
had Mike had like some problems with Mr. X
Yeah.
when I sent him this game for our Christmas exchange last year.
So as a follow-up to Resident Evil 7, right? You have Jack, who's intensely frightening, but also he's not really allowed to kill you, right? In the story. Like
And
he's
also
he's
doesn't
just
stick
there to
around for that
he's just kind of there to fuck with you. Mr.
Right.
X is fucking the Terminator.
Yes.
And he's gonna fucking ruin your
He's
whole
fucking
shit.
the Terminator.
He's fucking the Terminator. That's how strong he is.
That's
Even
how
the
strong he is.
Terminator is turned on by Mr. X.
He can't be
Damn.
bargained with. He can't be reasoned with. He doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and he
Um,
will not stop
Right.
Ever.
until you are dead.
But it's just man, I came around on the character. I don't like the character faces are a little weird to me, but like
They are a little strange.
the outfits and the clothing
teeth.
and the way
It's the
everybody
teeth.
else looks is really good. And I like I like everything about this. I think all the things that they changed from the original Resident Evil 2 are for the better. And
Also, the gore in this game is so
it's so
fucking good.
disgusting, right? That's the same
Like,
same
when they
thing that
rip
makes the food
sinew
look
out
good.
of the neck.
Makes the
Yeah,
sinew look good. Yeah.
and like when you find the guy who's been killed by the liquor in this version,
Yeah.
and Leon lifts up his head, and you see like the spiral cut around his head from the liquor, and it's
Yeah.
oh god, it's just
Check out this pizza.
all that stuff is great. The death scenes when you die,
Yeah.
the death scenes are all very good.
Yeah.
And it's
I think maybe the
again-
only downside maybe is some of the Sherry stuff is a little bit like not
It's
so
fine.
it's fine. but
It's not
compared to
very
the rest of the
long.
game,
So
yeah,
also when she shatters the bottle of acid on
it's pretty
Iron's
good.
face,
Yeah,
it's
that's
immensely satisfying. Also, Chief Irons really knows how to tell you that the door is locked.
locked. Yeah, a couple extra
um,
D's on the end of that one.
yeah, and he's really doing that voice actor was doing his diction exercises
Yeah. I
that.
enjoy the way that they integrate Leon's first day into the police station stuff. It's just like a
Yes,
cool little
yeah,
detail that they
unlocking the
put in
desk and
there.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love.
Uh, Also, the real time lighting stuff in this game
Yeah.
is fucking fantastic.
I
Which
should have
even
turned.
7
Looking at
didn't
this
really.
capture footage, I should have turned the RTX stuff off. Though I
Yeah,
was, it's a little
yeah,
stuttery,
yeah.
but
But it like
it's great.
that the way it works with the real time lighting is better than what there's a little bit of that in Resident Evil 7, but not much.
When
But this game
we
that
did
really.
our game of the year for this, I like this game is not exciting or fresh, but it is like immaculately put together. Right?
Well,
It's
obviously,
just
I said it was my game of the year that year, and it
yeah.
was. I mean,
It
it
was
just
pretty high
I
for me too, but it's just like I said, it's like
had the platinum
I
trophy.
think
All
this
that.
was the same. Was the same year Outer Wilds came out? It's probably why I didn't get Game of the Year.
Yeah.
I believe this
Because
was
Outer
the same.
Wilds is wildly inventive, and this is just like I would say probably the best third person shooter campaign that has ever existed.
Yeah, I mean it's this game is really good.
It's really
This
good.
And again, it does the same thing with 7, where if you're not super into these games in the classic style, there's an easy mode, there's a normal mode.
Right.
They're pretty, the game still does what it sets
You
out
can
to
play
do,
it how you
which
want,
is,
but if you want to make it hard, you can make it hard. Yeah.
if you want to, like I did, I mean, I did the shit where I did the S plus runs on the fucking hard difficulty to unlock all the shit, and you can just pay $5 to unlock all the shit, which is nice. If you want to just have all the shit, you can pay $5 for DLC that unlocks it all. But I did it all the hard way, and it's super tense. It's kind of frustrating, but it's really satisfying when you manage to beat the game in less than 2.5 hours, only using 3 saves or fewer, and no special weapons, no bonus weapons, and like unlocking the chain gun and the rocket launcher that way is just like, it's such a fucking accomplishment. It's a lot of fun, and this game is like both twos for me are in contention for the best.
I want to put this one at the top.
You put this over 7?
I do, yeah.
I think I would agree with that.
Does that make sense to you?
Really hard. It makes sense to me, but 7 is really good too.
7's really good too. I agree, but I think this is just 7 is more inventive, and the first third of 7 is like a higher high point than anything in 2. But 2 is just good all the way through. The only bad thing, the only thing in 2,
Jeff said actually when we did the year end thing,
yeah,
we said that it was more even.
Yeah.
There's no boat shit.
Right. The only thing in 2 that I don't like is there's one William Birkin fight, the one on it's like a puzzle fight where you have to like swing the shipping container around. Yeah, that fight it kind of sucks, but
you don't have to do you can kill him the old-fashioned way, but it takes a lot of bullets.
Right. It's really it's not a great fight, but yeah, the Mr. X mods like the DMX mod and all that, the fucking Kool-Aid Man or
the Speedos for Leon and
good.
Mr. X.
Yeah, it's pretty good. A lot of good, funny stuff came out of this game. It's good. It is a fun third-person action game. It's genuinely scary, which is a really hard tightrope to walk.
And again, like 7, every single zombie encounter can be the end. A single zombie can kill you on the normal difficulty very easily.
Yeah.
And I also like that he kind of adds another wrinkle of like, it's not quite the same as the Resident Evil 1 where they'll just get back up and be even stronger. But if you don't pop a zombie's head, even if it stops moving and you would normally
sometimes
think it's
they'll
dead,
come back.
if you leave the room and come back, it'll get up again.
Yeah.
So the best strategy actually to conserve ammo is to shoot their legs off.
Right.
Kind of like Dead Space.
That way they can like crawl at you.
Yeah. And figuring that out on your own is which of course now anybody watching this didn't get to figure that out.
Oh no.
I felt like that was a really cool. Yeah. I thought that was a really cool, like for me, like the light bulb went on where it was like, no, wait, like the best way to do this is just to shoot all their legs off and not try to go for headshots.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 left.
2 left.
You gonna make it?
Yep.
All right.
Let's do it.
The one of the 2 from 2020, Resident Evil 3 remake,
Resident Evil
Which this
remake,
is
please.
this
Yeah,
is
three.
I think of all the Resident Evil games, I think this is the one that maybe is most contentious amongst.
Yes.
Seems like there's some people that really like it and there's some people that really hate it.
I felt like it was meant to be played multiple times, almost like it's not a roguelike, but almost in that way. Like there's a bunch of items you unlock that sort of change how the game is played, and it feels like it's short enough campaign that it was really like playing it once and being like, oh, it's only like 5 hours long. Like, like, well, yeah, but it's like pretty clearly meant for you to do it more than once,
I mean,
and
Play the Spire is only 5 minutes long if you fuck up.
right, right. Or something like I mean, there's a lot of games like that, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
totally.
you can like, you can do a run of a lot of things and just, a successful run of Hades is only 40 minutes or less, right? But that's not the point.
Well,
If you do that, that's not, you're missing the point of Hades.
Yeah.
Like if,
So I will say I only played it once and I had a great time.
all right, well, that's good. It's
It
because there's a lot
doesn't
of people
games.
who are like,
I'm
"Oh, it's
I'm
short."
totally fine with a game just being 6 hours long. That's give me your 6 best hours. Don't pad it out. Like it means that they're really like this game is similar to Resident Evil 2 in that it's pretty much a plateau. This game actually starts out. I think that like the first half hour or so, this is the best, and then it kind of comes down and plateaus until the end of the game.
A little bit. Yeah. I think it's the weakest of the four. I think. Well,
Of the 4
between
remakes?
this and 8 of the 4
Modern
current crop,
games?
the 4 modern ones.
Okay.
This and 8 are kind of in contention for me for the least of those, but I still like all 4 of them
A
a
lot.
lot. Like
Yeah.
I said, I feel like the series is in a sort of renaissance, the likes of which it has never, like the level of consistency it really hasn't.
There's
ever
actually
seen.
few video game series who've ever been on a streak as hot as the last 4 Resident Evil games, in my opinion.
Right. I'm like trying
Yeah.
to think of an example.
It's like
and I'm
Mario.
really, yeah, like Mario, well,
Zelda.
Galaxy 2, 3D World, and Odyssey would be like a comparable run of
Well,
Mario.
or even just like Mario 2, 3 World.
Yeah, you like Yoshi's Island a
64.
lot more than I do.
I guess I was gonna say Yoshi's Island's like a side.
2, 3 Super Mario World and 64 would be comparable, yeah,
Right.
for sure. But like Mega Man never had a run like this. Even Contra, Contra maybe. Contra Super C, Contra 3 and Hardcore is
pretty
a
good.
pretty
I don't know if it's as good
unbeatable
as
run
this,
of 4
but
games.
it's pretty good. But my point is,
but it's hard.
It's
there are not a lot
hard,
of series that
right.
pull it off. And it's like I mean,
it's the reason if it hadn't been for these, we wouldn't be doing this because we wouldn't be that interested in the series anymore.
right.
Basically,
The fact that Capcom rehabilitated the series to the level where they were able to put out 4 at this level, and also I think part of it is like
4
honestly,
and 5 years also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing for me, here's a big thing for me about all of this, right? Is like there's a lot of games right now that put in a lot of microtransaction shit. There's this games as a service, like in the AAA space. There's a lot of indie games where it's like you play through the game and that's the video game. But in the same space as Capcom is working right now in the AAA full price retail $60 video game, I feel like there are vanishingly few single player experiences that you play through once or twice and like that's the video game.
Right.
Like,
well, remember
so many games
around the time Resident Evil 7 came out was like when EA was canceling all their like single player Star Wars games and like there was definitely a big push, like everything was going to be Destiny or whatever. And I like some of those games, like that's a different kind of model, but
sure, I mean, I played a lot of fucking Overwatch.
Right, the last 3 or 4 years we've proved that there's room for both actually. Like Sony does great business with their single player games. Those aren't games that I like particularly, but not every game has to be either a big open world cluster or a rolling service game. But it's just a Resident Evil 3 remake specifically. I think it's the biggest improvement over the original Resident Evil 3 is they really make the Nemesis like meaningful. Like the fights with the Nemesis evolve in a really like his arc through the game is like he consistently gets more powerful and he consistently gets more scary and he consistently is like more of a huge asshole that you cannot get away from. It unlike Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 or Jack, it's a little more scripted and so it loses a little something the
There's
like
two sections where he's
spontaneity.
unscripted, but for most of it he's scripted, which
But
is
but the scripting is good, and so it works, right? It's
true.
just like
Like,
you can make a game like a Half-Life or whatever that's a roller coaster ride as long as the roller coaster is good. And in this case, the roller coaster, in my opinion, is really fucking good.
also the opening of this is a
It's
different thing than 7
I
and
love it.
2.
Yeah.
But it's really good. I
It
like the opening
really
with that Nemesis is like some people are like, well, they don't like there's like a slow reveal to him in the original version. I'm like, kind of like he just sort of comes out of nowhere. He still comes out of nowhere. He just comes out of nowhere later. Him bursting through Jill's apartment wall, which is what you're about to see here, is like that is a fucking that's a bucket of cold water, man.
Well,
That fucking dude comes through
I love this
Jill's
Jill character design.
apartment. Thing about Jill in this game. I feel like Jill
I love
is
I love this opening. I think this like little 10-minute section where you have the dream sequence and then you have the part this part in the apartment where you're like poking around looking at her stuff. It's
right. You can
the
look at her
most
notes.
that any Resident Evil character has ever felt like an actual character, right? Like mostly
that's what I was
Resident Evil
about to
characters
say.
just are like one line spouting action movie ciphers or whatever.
I think
And like you
Claire has
actually
some,
go ahead.
I think Claire has some good stuff in the 2 remake, especially when it comes
Yeah.
to Sherry and Birkin's wife. There's some
Mhm.
stuff in there about like she's like, oh, Sherry will be fine, and Claire's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like you let
Yeah.
your daughter just wander around in a fucking like zombie
But
filled
it's
city.
not like
What the
real
fuck?
character development, you
No,
know?
not to the level of that.
This is like
Jill
this is a
has
person
real,
that is they're doing a really excellent job of like showcasing like what PTSD and depression is like for someone who went through something horrifically tragic, right? And it's like such a simple thing and they don't really revisit it too much in the rest of the game, but it's an extremely well put together sequence. And then it's followed by this kick-ass action sequence where the Nemesis shows up and is just like an unstoppable bulldozer. I mean, they even do the Terminator thing at one
Right.
point. It's just
She
it's good.
yeah.
And then this game, and then once you get past all this stuff, and then you're just like running through the city trying to get away from Nemesis, and Jill kind of turns into honestly, like she has like the best one-liners of anyone. Like the bitch can't even swim
Can't even swim,
is
dude.
so fucking good. And then I can't remember what the other one was, but there's
Well,
at
the
least
other one isn't her. It's not her. It's Nikolai or whatever. It says, "Get off my train, shit."
oh, that's right. Get off my train, shit bird. Yeah. And they also like
That's not. Jill doesn't get that one.
I
That's
really
not
like
Jill.
I like the relationship between Jill and Carlos. Like
Yes, it
like
feels very. It
it's
feels real.
yeah, it's
It-
way better than like there's a tension like this
Better
is
than Claire and Claire
and Steve. Yeah, a little better than Claire and Steve. But not just like a sexual tension, but like a tension of them being like on opposite sides of something, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know. I feel like this is like they took the basic idea of what Nemesis was supposed to be, and then they just made a way better game out of it.
Also, this game has a bonus weapon called a hot dogger, which is a knife that's on fire.
Okay, I mean that's cool.
So, can't talk down to the hot dogger.
Also, this game fucking shows like a city on fire in the midst of a pandemic that came out like a month before we experienced like the worst pandemic in 100 years. And there was something super like weird about all that also.
Wasn't it like I feel like it was a month after.
Was it after?
It was April.
Maybe it was
April.
maybe it was
I thought
April.
It was like
I was
right
thinking
at the beginning of the
it
pandemic.
was right. Yeah, it was right around that time. It was really a weird thing, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, this game is I don't think it's as good as the other two modern Resident Evil games that we've been talking about, but I think it's a really great romp.
I think I would put this below the Resident Evil 1 remake. I think that's where I would slot.
But above regular Resident Evil 1.
But above vanilla Resident Evil.
Yeah, I can get down with that.
I think Resident Evil 1 is so hard. It's so hard with Resident Evil 1 specifically because it's such an important game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and it has a lot of charm. It still has its charms.
It does. It's still absolutely.
But it's hard to go back to.
But it's hard to say like, is it more or less fun than this other game in the series?
Also, I love these posters in Resident Evil 3.
Later.
There's so much great
The
art
Mega
in
Man
this
action
city.
figures in the toy store
Yeah,
of bad box art Mega Man are
there's
like A
so much great art in this game. Like this opening sequence is really incredible.
all the trying to catch all the references to other old Capcom franchises in the posters and the
Mm,
art and stuff that's on the walls is a lot of fun. Like
yeah.
I think there's a 1942 thing, and there's a bunch of Mega Man references, and there's some more obscure shit than that even that I remember being like, oh wow, I can't
Yeah.
believe. There's something about like a symposium featuring Thomas Light on one of the posters, like coming soon.
Yeah.
Thomas Light will be speaking about his blah blah blah.
Somebody had a lot of fun putting this all together.
Yeah.
I
Also,
think
fuck Brad.
some of the there's some like the hospital's a little bare bones or whatever. But I like I said, this game is a great romp, I think. Um
Also, it's
and
fun to once again revisit the police station from 2, and
yeah,
except now it's the modern 2. And like, if you're a big nerd like me and played the shit out of the 2 remake and remember the passcode for the
you
safe,
can open it.
and you can open the safe and get an extra
Yeah,
side pack
it's cool.
for the so that stuff.
All right. Let's move on to the final of the modern, the most recent Resident Evil game. I think this is actually the Resident Evil game that is the most contentious, maybe between you and I. I feel like when this came out, I liked it a lot more than you did.
I mean, I
Sparks
played it
are
a
about
lot.
to fly.
Well, let me see how long Steam says I've played this game.
I mean,
for,
I only
'cause
played through it once, so I'm sure you played a lot more of it than I
I
did.
played a lot more of it than you did.
But
then.
well, maybe your opinion has changed somewhat since
Steam says I've played
we
75
did
hours.
this. Holy shit! Since we did maybe your opinion has changed somewhat since we did the spoiler
I mean,
cast.
so I didn't play those other games on Steam, so I don't know how long off the
Yeah.
top of my head I played like
It's worth mentioning that most of these games you've played
Remake
like
2 and
dozens
Remake.
of hours of, and I've mostly just played them once or twice. But
I got the platinum trophies or the 1,000 achievements on all of them basically since 5.
Yeah.
Except for 6, not 6. But I still played like 20 hours worth of 6 for some reason.
I probably played more of
Um,
5 than any of the other ones. Anyways, let's talk about
So-
Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Village.
The story is
It's
so all that
it's-
shit we were just saying about how well Jill is characterized and like realized in 3, all of that shit goes directly out the fucking window for this game. None of these characters have any depth whatsoever, and every attempt to
He's
make
just a
them have
dad
depth,
trying to save his baby that's been cut up into 4 pieces and put into a jar.
That's right, 4 separate jars.
Don't worry
please.
about it.
separate
See,
jars,
so I
yeah.
guess here's the thing. I think the story is exactly what I need it to be, and nothing more, nothing less. I think it's
Yeah.
ridiculous and stupid in a way that I really enjoy, and I think that's mostly intentional.
It does not. A lot of it does not read as intentional to me. A lot of it reads as they thought they were doing some real fucking heavy shit that was going to tug at your heartstrings.
I don't
and I'm
know,
just like,
man. I
all.
don't think you do the thing with the tank at the end if you're, you know what I mean? I think they
Yes,
mostly
that's
are
true.
in on the joke. Or like I mean I genuinely feel for Ethan a little bit, but anyway, this game I
like
think
this
I
a
think
lot.
this game starts out as the most grounded Resident Evil game and at some point becomes perhaps the most ridiculous Resident Evil
Most
game.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it starts out with this scene of you and you've rescued Mia and you've had a child and you're in this little house and Mia is making baby food and cooking and drinking wine and the baby's been put to sleep and you're trying to carry her upstairs and it's just this
There's a book about architecture by George Trevor in the Winters Library because there's always little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's
here
just like this
everywhere.
little slice of heaven, you know. They've moved on from being immortal mold monsters and fighting.
No, but they haven't.
Oh no, they haven't, huh?
So,
Uh-huh.
okay. This game feels like it is. They were really trying to recapture, which is weird because apparently they're remaking Resident Evil 4, which I think is, I said earlier tonight, is grossly unnecessary in my view. But this almost feels like it is not a remake of Resident Evil 4, but it's a big callback to Resident Evil 4. There's a merchant, there's improving your guns, the mercenaries mode is back for the first time since 6. 7, the 2 remake and the 3 remake, none of them had a mercenaries mode. And so mercenaries is back. It's really action heavy. There's a bunch of different guns that you sell and trade and get different newer shotgun, newer, better pistol, multiple
Ethan
magnums,
is
blah
the
blah
world's
blah.
greatest sniper.
Ethan somehow is the world's. Well, he got that whirlwind military training from
That's
Chris.
true. Yeah.
So, and then Chris is framed as the bad guy, which I think the problem I have with Chris in particular is that, like, for as well realized as Jill was in the 3 remake, Chris
Yeah.
Redfield is a character that Capcom clearly has no fucking idea what they want him to be or what they want to do with him. He is
All over the
basically
place.
as much of a cipher as Ethan at this point, because from game to game, he fucking changes personalities.
Yeah. Well, maybe
Um,
we'll get the Chris game at some point here, and
I
some of
mean,
that will change.
how many games has he been in?
He's been in the
uh,
most, I think, of any of the
he's done the most
characters,
of
Yeah,
any of
that's
them.
what I mean.
and
I'm
he's
like,
also changed the most from game to game. So
exactly. I'm like, which one's gonna be the Chris game? I'm like, you mean Resident Evil 1? Like,
One or Code Veronica or
I don't. So
Yeah.
here's an interesting question.
Revelation.
Do we want them to like codify these modern games as like the Resident Evil characters and kind of like continue on like at a smooth plane from here on out, or do you want them to keep like reinventing and like experimenting and doing different things with them?
I think both can be good. Both could be good. So it really depends on how the execution is, I think, more than just conceptually saying I want a sequel to the Resident Evil 2 remake with that version of Leon, or I want like that characterization of Leon to be the Resident Evil 4 remake hero, and I want Paul Haddad or whatever back to do the voice again. Like I don't know, and I don't know honestly what the official Capcom stance is like if the current Resident Evil canon, for lack of a better term, is it now the 1 remake, the 2 remake, the 3 remake, or is it still
I don't know.
1, 2, and 3 as they existed in the 90s? Or I mean, ultimately I don't really give a shit is the thing
No.
about that in particular. But
Do you?
I don't know.
Okay. Do we want the Resident Evil game where there's like this into the Resident Evil verse where like all the Resident Evil timelines converge, and like giant
no, I don't-
Roid
I don't
Chris
think I want
and this
that.
Chris and the Chris from Resident Evil all have like a boulder punching contest?
I don't think I want that.
Okay.
I don't think I want that for sure. But I think what I don't want to pick up, I don't want them to decide they want to pick up from 6, where like 3 major cities in the world have been destroyed by bioterrorism.
I don't think you
Like,
have to worry about that.
I don't think that's interesting. I don't want them to do that.
Right.
I
Or
don't
that can be
know-
background noise to stories like this one, or
Sure,
stories like
yeah.
Resident Evil 2 or 3. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think that's another brilliant thing about the 2 and 3 remakes is they set them in 1998 again. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't try to modernize those remakes. They were like, no, it's still 1998.
Right.
For Jill still has this little 19-inch CRT in her apartment. That's her main TV for watching TV on. And that
It seems like that may be a continuum, and then maybe the like future Resident Evil is a continuum from 7 and 8, and what presumably will be 9 at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of speculation about, will 9 star Ethan's daughter,
That was what they were kind of hinting at the end of the game. I
or will
think,
that be DLC for this game?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
anyways,
I mean, this game
specifically, yeah, because we have to figure out where we're gonna rank it, and then I have to go to bed.
Right. I would put it under. I think I would put it. I mean, I played 75 hours of it, so I must have liked it, right? I don't know. I think I would probably put it somewhere in the vicinity of the 1 remake and the 3 remake is where I would drop this one. For me, I could hear an argument about putting it above the 3 remake.
So it's definitely above Code Veronica.
It's definitely above Code Veronica.
Definitely above the original Resident Evil.
Probably above vanilla Resident Evil. Yeah. I don't know. I
thought we would argue more about this, but I would put it. I think overall as an experience,
I thought you would want to put it above RE3 make.
I think that's where I want it. I would probably also put it above I might even put it above Resident Evil 4 and behind Resident Evil 2, but I know that's going to be way too high for you.
No, I can't go there. This is a not as good version of Resident Evil 4, a game which, if I could track my hours across the GameCube, PS2, Wii, and Steam versions of Resident Evil 4, I have no idea how many hours I logged in all of those collectively. But I will tell you this: it was a fucking lot.
In 2021, I want to play this game way more than I want to play Resident Evil 4. I think that this game moves from location to location a lot faster and doesn't get bogged down in some of the stuff that 4 does. And I like this game's kind of sort of like lumpy first person controls more than I like the lumpy third person controls in Resident Evil 4.
So are we?
But I'm not going to take that. Are
we absolutely in agreement that it's not as good as 2 Remake or 7?
No,
or original 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far either, probably.
So I think I would slot it below 3, but if you want to slot it above the 3,
could we between 3 and regular remake? Would that be a good compromise?
Yes, I think that's fine. And again, like, I think, like, if we were gonna do a tier, which again, like, we both gotta go to bed. But if I was going to do a tier, like if I was putting these into tiers, I would say like 2 Remake through 3 Remake is probably like the S tier. Or like, yeah.
And then Resident Evil, I would say that's like the top tier, and then Resident Evil is in its own tier. Yes. And then you get Code Veronica 5, Nemesis, and like Revelations 2, maybe if we finish it, might be another tier. And then like you get like to the okay tier is like Revelations and Umbrella Chronicles, and then
the C tier, and then 0 is like
D, and then 6 and the rest are all F, probably.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm having a hard time making the transparency work, so I'm just going to put it like this. But below 1, but above 3. Are you comfortable with? Did I talk you into putting 7 above regular 2? We good with how this list looks?
I mean, I think for the sake of not
staying up much later.
Yeah, not staying up much later, I'll say yes. But I think my personal list would put both versions of 2 practically at a dead heat, really, and then 7 right behind them, and then 4 right behind that, which is weird for me because for a long time, Smoke Monster says, "What's the order?" If you look on the left sidebar, that's from top to bottom. That's the order that we put them in. Yeah, for me personally, I think 2 and 2 are in a dead heat, and then 7, and then 4, and then Remake, and then Remake, and then Village, and then RE1. Vanilla RE1 would be and that's like, those games are all kind of like in the same like area of like, those are games that I could pretty much play at any time and enjoy them and most of them I got the fucking platinum trophy or whatever that,
I made a
did
change.
All of the shit.
Yeah, I put the Outbreaks above 6. The more I think about 6, the less I like it. It's like it's probably a better game than those 2, but it's such a giant waste of money and human effort that it makes me mad.
Yeah. I'll go with that.
Okay.
I'll go with that.
All right. That's Resident Evil.
Yeah. So
we ranked them.
I would say to anybody who has an interest in horror video games, you kind of have to play the top tier of, again, like Resident Evil Vanilla, both 2s, and then all the way down through, like, again, I would say probably the original game is worth playing, even if you kind of bounce off of it a little bit, just because it's sort of this foundational text of horror video games. Like, Takuro Fujiwara's dream was to make a video game that was actually scary because he didn't think that really like such a thing existed. And I guess like there were some PC like adventure games that you could probably argue
there's some pretty creepy like graphical text parser adventure games that are pretty creepy, but
that's true. But that's relying a lot on your imagination, right?
Well, I mean, listen, sometimes books are scary, so.
Right, but I'm saying it's easier to write. I shouldn't say easier. That's not fair. But like, I think the bar of a
Given how many
scary
bad
book
adventure
is
games are, I don't know if it is
right.
easier
Well,
or
that's
not.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. But stuff like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which I guess is based off of a literary work. So like that's kind of, but like that Sanitarium and I guess I don't know if those actually came before the original
Well,
Resident Evil or
I
not.
don't think Sanitarium was after. I'm pretty sure that was like '98, I think. But
So I
anyways,
mean, yeah,
they
that
made
was
some
his
scary
dream, was to
games.
make an actually scary game, and I think, I mean, again, as we said at the very beginning of this, like our reaction as 13-year-old boys to that original game says that he succeeded, and sort of that's like again like the foundational text of certainly scary console games. Say at least say that. Um, and so I think it's important. I think it's worth playing even now. But if you bounce off of it, like the games above that are must plays for sure.
Yep,
All of those games are just fucking fantastic.
they are. They're all very good. Resident Evil, as it turns out, is good. It's a good thing the last 5 years happened because things were
It was not,
pretty
right?
dire in 2016, my friend.
I mean, it's so wild to think that they went from a string of Umbrella Corps, Operation Raccoon City,
Oh,
6, were all like in a row as far as
some
like the
pretty
main
like
console release,
Revelations was like the high point of that era of
right? And
Resident
that was
Evil.
at the time it was a
Yeah.
DS game. It
Right.
wasn't, or 3DS
And
game.
the best of the mid 2000s Resident Evil games was just like super disgustingly racist, and like if anybody said like, "Hey, I don't want to play this game because of how gross it is," like I couldn't disagree, you know.
Yeah,
Like that's a weird one to rank cuz
yeah,
like there's
5
a
is
part of me that wants to put it way lower, and it might actually nudge up a couple of spots if it we get like a non-racist remake of that, cuz that game's hella fun.
yeah, as long as
Anyway.
you're playing co-op. But
Yeah.
again, part of what makes it hard to rank is playing single player sucks. So
Yeah. Anyways, all right, that's it. We ranked the Resident Evil games. This was Halloween. Halloween's over. Ended like 2.5 hours
Oh,
right,
ago.
it is now All Saints Day.
But we figured it
Smoke
out. This
wants to
is
know if we can do our top Dr. Mario's next. I will say number one, Dr. Mario, but the bottom tier is also Dr. Mario, so it's like really
Ooh.
weird. I do like Dr. Mario though.
Well, isn't there like a Switch, like a redo Dr. Mario thing? Anyway,
There was a mobile one.
we'll worry about
that-
this. Yeah, there was a mobile one. That's it. Anyways, check out that rubber puppet. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wet Puppets, original Resident Evil FMVs. Everybody
I'm
loves
moving this game up. Actually, it's the only one with puppets.
Wet Puppets.
Horror puppets. It's the best one, as it turns out. Check out these pants. All right, that's it. We're out of
Happy
here.
Halloween, everybody.
Happy
Good night.
Halloween.